Right. Hello, everybody. No wonder I wasn't. Well, listen, I don't know how many people are listening, but I've just been talking to myself for the last 10 minutes. And I I think I was doing pretty well. I thought it was pretty good. And I don't think it was recorded, and I don't think I'll ever get it back, so I'll just have to start over anyway. Damn it. If there's anybody who can hear me now, if you stuck around for the 10 minutes and you haven't clicked off, if you could give me a 5 by 5, right? Which I think everyone always says that in their live streams. And I think it means, or it comes from, yeah, I think it means, is my quality good and is my amplitude good? Am I loud enough and am I clear enough? That's great. And Anne Hesch's liver donation. That's a fantastic name. And I'm wondering who that is because I don't recognize the name, but I bet you it's somebody who I do know who's changed the name. That's fantastic. And I really appreciate that because I'm off to a slightly shaky start in that whoever was hanging around, I kept them waiting for 10 minutes while I talked to myself. But that's given me some encouragement now. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a bit of a preamble, and it won't be as good as the one you didn't hear. That's sent off into the ether, but it wasn't being recorded or sent live. First of all, what I want to talk about is just that I'm doing a live stream and why am I doing a live stream, and what's the topic about, and then maybe if I can remember and keep the flow without going down too many tangents, I'll get on to maybe what is the topic of this particular live stream, and why am I doing a live stream as opposed to just recording something and then uploading it and leaving it at that. There is a different sort of, and I'm trying to think of the right word, feeling, let's say, to doing a live stream rather than uploading a video. And if people comment on it, that you can interact with people that way. So I said one reason there, that's the word interaction. At some point, I don't know if I'll do it in this live stream, but at some point, I would like to have a conversation with maybe somebody that I might invite on, whoever might be in the stream or whatever. Um, I may not have time to do it if I want to keep this, like, say, within, I don't know, something reasonable, some reasonable amount of time. But the boy who cried wolf. Let's start there, right? It's possible that people aren't familiar with this story. It's an Aesop's fable story, or Aesop, however you want to say it. And I don't know much about Aesop other than I think I always presumed that he was a Greek who wrote stories. And there's lots of different translations and versions of them. And when I was a kid, there was, I'm pretty sure it's probably a British publishing house called Ladybird Books, and my mother would read these children's versions of these Aesop fables to me. Now I grew up, well, not grew up in them, but they were part of my very formative years. And I think before I was introduced to Catholicism, which I'm presuming was through my schooling, although my parents were Catholics, nominatively, or they weren't particularly devout Catholics. Certainly not by comparison to other people. Although my father, he was very civic minded, and so I won't sort of criticize him too much, but he sort of did it out of civic duty. But he felt that civic duty very strongly to attend mass, and that his children should attend as well because of how, let's say, at the time it would have been if the children didn't attend, and it would have been unusual back in the 80s, like not to attend mass. They might say, "Oh, what's up with his children? Are they, you know, a bad family, a bold people, or whatever?" Anyway, I'm dragging myself off topic there. What I'm trying to say is my morality, I think, if it was inculcated in me, and if I wasn't born with a full moral framework, um, but who knows? I mean, Aesop's fables are, well, I'll use the word autodidactic in the sense that I think the good versions of them and the versions that I was read to, I think didn't tell you what the moral of the story was. It allowed you to figure it out for yourself, but maybe it just gave you some fat to chew on, and a way to formulate your thoughts. A bit like maybe your muscles are already there, but you have some. If you go to a playground, there's some climbing bars to exercise them on and feel and test how they work. So that's the genesis of something and then the development of it, or it's a way of describing the difference between uh, something that is innate and something that is cultivated, and I always forget the term when I go to think of it, but I'm sure you know what I mean, or what I'm reaching for. It's nature versus nurture. Now, I'm not trying to talk about how I was born with perfect morals or anything like that, but it occurs to me that people mightn't have heard of that. Although, I mean, I don't want to. What's this? I'm trying to again think of another phrase. The word or the phrase I'm looking for is underestimate. That's it, my audience. And by the way, I don't know how much of a delay there is when somebody writes a comment and then StreamYard transferring it over. Maybe it's only a few seconds, but I tend to get very distracted if I'm looking around and I just saw Miss Maskless there. So I'll say hello back, hi, and thank you for joining. I've no idea how many people are listening, and I don't know how many people are in the chat because I'm not looking at YouTube. I'm just looking at StreamYard. But anyway, The Boy Who Cried Wolf, I thought it was something, I always think, right, that it's not difficult to know how to be moral. People always pretend, oh, I didn't know. I was that a mistake? I remember, do you know what I'm thinking of now? And I always keep going off on tangents, and they're not the things I intended to say, but thoughts pop into my head. And what I'm reminded of is George Seinfeld in the Seinfeld TV series, and he buys a cashmere sweater, and he gives it, and he gets it on severe discount because it's got this small dot in it, a stain or whatever, and he gives it to the cleaning lady in an office where he just got a job. And anyway, well, I don't know if he seduces the cleaning lady, but he has sex with her on the desk anyway in his office, and he gets caught. And the employer says, or HR gets involved, or the employer gets involved and says, listen, we're going to have to give you, not fires him, I think just gives him a formal warning or whatever. And he goes, oh, is that against company policy? And I probably wasn't in company policy, He's going, oh, was that bad? I didn't know because it wasn't in company policy. You're not supposed to do that. And this is why then the company or the corporation then always is able to step in and add all these minutiae, all the draconian things, trying to regulate every single aspect of your life as to what you can and can't do, because people like George Costanza constantly pretend that they didn't know what was moral and what isn't. And thanks, Miss Maskless. I know, yeah, YouTube will lie to me, a number of people. There's really thousands of people listening, 1,000, but I'm not in any I'm not under any illusions as to how many people might or might not be listening. Well, Anne Hesh there says there's 4, and that's fantastic if there are, because if there were nobody listening, right, I'd be terribly embarrassed. But then I'd go, oh, wait a minute, at least nobody's there to see, my failure in a way. And that's, but I mean, look, I won't call it a failure, and I won't be talking about how I'm feeling about while I'm live streaming too much, because it's not going to be very interesting then. But I kind of thought then, oh, well, that would be more embarrassing if somebody popped in to see there was nobody listening. But anyway, it is a sort of a nerve-wracking thing. But why I'm doing it, and I was talking to, there's a different feeling to it, a different flavor to it. And I'm stepping off the topic a bit now, but however, it's kind of, that's the intention, right? I could have scripted all this, but I would prefer to err on the side of being natural, even if I make lots of mistakes. And if I get all tangled up, then I just tango on, right? As long as I don't leave too much dead air and go for a long time. I have lined up a video or two that would prompt me to think of something else if I totally lose my train of thought, which I probably have now. But as far as why I'm doing this, then again, look, other people, and I'll leave them unnamed just for now, so I won't lose my train of thought. But I've been on live streams, and part of my job, which I'll get into, or a job that I had, which I'll get into, did involve a certain amount of public speaking, not in front of too many people, but standing behind and I believe the word is not a podium because you're standing on a podium, but behind a dais maybe or a lectern, and that's nerve wracking. First few times, and actually it always is a little bit. Um, but I'm not saying that I'm competent or consummate professional at that. But I'm just saying it's something that assists, and the more you do it, it helps you then push yourself a little bit more into doing things like this. And I've been on a few people's live streams as a guest, and it's nerve wracking as well. But you only have to worry about showing up and opening your microphone, and the host takes care of everything else. And you hope that there's no hardware malfunctions. And I spent a little while before this making sure everything was set up and the mic is hopefully at the right volume and things like that. Oh, and the internet might be all right and this kind of thing. But anyway, I was on this fellow's live stream, and I'll say his name. Might as well give him a shout out. He's called Reg from Alaska. Although his channel now, I think he lost that channel. I'm not sure if it's still there, but he streams lately from a channel called Waked in Alaska, or just Waked Alaska. And his name is Reg anyway. And he was telling me about how he likes to. Well, I always thought it was cold all year round, but even in the summer, I would have thought it'd be too cold to jump into a stream there. But he does it even when there's snow on the ground, and I wouldn't be doing that. But he said, look, it's about pushing yourself beyond a certain point where you'd sort of bow out. And I was telling him, listen, I definitely wouldn't do that because I just don't see the need to put myself into discomfort. But apart from the specifics of it, I totally understand pushing yourself beyond something. The world is full of ways that you can sort of distinguish between people. You know the way they say there's two kinds of people in the world. There's people that do this and people that do that. And one way, and I think it's a very useful way of differentiating people, it's two very distinct personality types, is the kind of person who'll come across a barrier and say, all right, I won't even bother going up to it and examining it, or going up to the edge of it and touching it and sort of saying, yeah, no, this is not for me. It's people who see it from, a distance and go, right, I'm turning the other way and running away. And I'm never going to go near one of those things again. They give up before they even start. And it's a very bad way to be, because it just feeds into a fear, like a monster inside you. A sort of a paranoid monster that's constantly telling you that you're not capable of something, you're not good enough, and you'll never succeed at something. Now, I'm not somebody who's full of confidence either, but so between confidence and this kind of paranoia that you'll always fail, there's again a balance to be struck, because otherwise the confidence becomes a sort of, well, like egocentric, but egomaniacal, sort of not. Sometimes I get tongue tied when I look down and I saw a comment there. Even though I'm very appreciative of it, it just sets me thinking of something else. But an unrealistic, I suppose is the word I'm looking for, sense of bravado that you'll be able to do anything, So anyway, Anne Hesh there says Anne Hesh's liver donation. It's not Anne Hesh herself. It's the act of donating the liver. And I tell you what, you're cracking me up. And I have an idea who it might be, but it's brilliant. I love that name. So I'm guessing it's a man, but maybe it's a woman. It says, you would be surprised how refreshing jumping into sub-freezing water is. I know. And look, I've done it. And I told a story. I might as well get into it on Reg's live stream, because maybe I just don't want to repeat myself, but maybe you guys haven't heard it. I think it's instructive. I'll get onto it, right? The high diving board. So I was saying my equivalent to that, my metaphor that I have in my head, and I've done it in real life. I was a good swimmer when I was a kid, and I had no fear as well. But sometimes when even in the swimming pool, there's high diving boards. You climb up that ladder, especially when you're a kid, and the difference between the rungs is practically half your height anyway, maybe more. And you get up to the top, and it's one thing sitting on the edge of the diving board. It's another thing when you stand on the edge of the diving board, and of course, all of a sudden the spring rate, then you're starting to feel not so solid anymore, and you make the mistake then. I mean, you grip your toes against the edge of the board, and you make the mistake then of thinking a little bit too long and getting into your own head and start doubting yourself. And I've done it before on other situations as well. It's a fear of failure. And I know that I have a big fear of failure inside, which prevents anybody then. Prevents you if you feed that fear of failure, it prevents you from doing anything then. And you wall yourself in. And then you prevent yourself from experiencing life because you cut yourself off from all the things that you could do. So I think the good metaphor, I mean, when Reg said the thing about diving into the icy water, yeah, why not? I mean, it's not going to kill you, probably. Although he was talking about, well, I was talking about saunas and going from that, like the Swedes or the Scandinavians do, I suppose the Norwegians must as well, and maybe the Finns. Going from their saunas or saunas, however they want to say it, the hot rooms where, you're basically, I suppose, I would imagine anyway, hotter than you naturally would be, and your core temperature is hotter than it naturally would be. And I think like with metal, what happens when you go from hot metal to cold metal real soon? It can get brittle. And now I'm certainly not trying to invoke the whole myocarditis for no reason at all type thing, but if I don't think it's a good thing to have extreme changes in things, like going from room temperature into liquid nitrogen, and things will crack and break then as well. I'm now thinking in my mind's eye the image of the Terminator 2, the liquid metal one, and he goes into liquid nitrogen. So yeah, Misk Masla says people do it on New Year's Eve here in Chicago. Yeah, people do it here as well, and I just think that's unnecessary pain and suffering. Right? I love swimming, but maybe I spoiled myself when I was a kid, or maybe my parents did, as because well, I was going to say swim in the Mediterranean, but there was some parts of the Mediterranean that were too cold for me. Look, I'm going to say maybe I don't mean to sound like I'm name dropping, but I haven't been back to the Adriatic, which is part of the Mediterranean, since I was a kid. But oh boy, did I love that! It was nice and warm because it's sort of like a cul-de-sac, or like a, well, it's not a river, but it's almost like I was going to say tributary, but almost like a lake. So if a peninsula is nearly an island, what is a sea that's nearly enclosed but isn't? So that was the Adriatic on the east coast of Italy. Beautiful, fine golden sand, and the what's the word for it? The slope of the beach, the sand below you, a very totally soft sand, nothing to cut your feet on, no shells, nothing in the water, nothing at the shoreline, just lovely soft sand. And it goes out, well, in my memory anyway, it was probably a mile, but it couldn't have been that far. But anyway, beautiful. And a very gentle slope on the way out. So you could swim, and the water was lovely. And that was me perfect. So maybe I was spoiled from that day on. But look, anyway, the point is, that if you get up to the diving board, you don't ever want to turn around and come back. You're teaching yourself to prepare for failure, and of course, there's that military phrase, isn't it? If you, I'm going to mess it up now, but if you prepare to fail, then fail to prepare. Oh God, if you fail to, it's the way around, isn't it? Fail to prepare, then you prepare to fail. But I haven't prepared this. No, it's just in your mind's eye. If you think you're going to fail, then you are. It becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, like so many other things as well, aren't there? You could say like from the individual to a collective, a group, the cultist collective mindset. That a lot of things, and I don't mean to be making any slights of people, and I'm not saying whether it's true or false. And it's not as simple as saying true or false. But I know Miss Massless is a religious person, a very Christian person, and I'm not denigrating that at all. I'm not saying I'm not either, but not in the same way. I think I might try to be more objective about everything, and I basically put it this way: I'm not somebody who reads the Bible every day for inspiration. Put it that way, right? Although I have to say, like, and I'm not trying to ingratiate myself with anybody here. A couple of years ago, maybe 3 years ago, I'm not quite sure how long ago, I read uh, the book of John about how Jesus stood up to the Pharisees, and I sort of felt a lump in my throat, and I kind of almost cried. Anyway, I'm getting well off the path there, but what was I trying to say there anyway? That and I can't now. I've lost my train of thought, but I suppose it's self-fulfilling prophecies. That must have been it. That there's so much things in the Bible, like we're living through now at the moment. But that's an avenue I don't necessarily want to get out just now. Just the book of Revelation and loads of other things that you can see in the Bible, and of course people who might have more of an Old Testament perspective. That a lot of things are self-fulfilling prophecies, and in other books as well. I suppose before I carry on, I'll just give myself a quick plug. And I'm like, there might be some of my audience who would be shocked. And look, if they are, then that's just going to have to be the way it's going to have to be. Excuse me. But as I mentioned, or maybe I didn't because I was talking to myself for 10 minutes before I hit the start broadcast button. If you go to my what's it called? No, I was going to say if you're a follower of truth, right? Now, if you're a religious person and you follow Jesus, right? I take following Jesus as being an exact literal um uh, sort of not metaphor but allegory. It translates as exactly the same thing. It's two ways of looking at exactly the same thing as saying I'm a follower of the truth, right? Jesus represents the truth. And so if you're saying you got to follow Jesus, I interpret that to mean you follow the truth and nothing but the truth. Right? And no, well, that part of the truth is inconvenient for me, so I don't want to know about that. No, you have to know about everything. And a while ago I said to God or the universe or whatever is listening, even if it's the devil who's ruling this world or whatever, that I want to know all of the truths, no matter how terrible they are to know and how disquieting they are. In other words, how upsetting they are. And, no matter how terrible these things are to know, yeah, then like that fella in the Matrix saying, listen, give me the blue pill. I want to go back and start eating prime steaks again. And I want to forget all about the stuff that I've learned. You can't do that. It's like climbing back down the diving board again. You just can't do it. I don't know why I'm occasionally want to do that. Like I'm well, it's not a Scotsman thing. It's your man Scotty out of Star Trek, isn't he? But you can't do it. It's just wrong. Everybody should know innately that it goes against, if there's a creator, it goes against who he created you to be. It goes against the potential you have to keep bettering yourself if you keep turning back around and shying away from things. So I'm not shying away from the thing that I don't want people to write in the comments. Obviously, we all know what we're talking about. As soon as they start talking about something that's verboten, right? There's something we're forbidden from saying. Then you know what it is, right? And apparently, it wasn't Voltaire that said you only have to ask what you're not allowed to talk about. It was a fella called Kevin Alfred Strom, I think. But it doesn't matter who said it. Each individual, I mean, people can say the same thing, describe the same truth. In other words, draw around the same truth. Nobody owns the truth. They're just vessels for it, or they can choose to be vessels for the truth. And when you choose to hold your own lips shut, oh, that doesn't sound too good. When you keep to, when you, oh God, right. When you choose to bite your own tongue, is what I should have said. Then it's sort of murdering. You know, it's like an act against creation. It's I would say, like, to put it in religious terms, right? It's going against God. I'm not saying that in the same way that any regular Christian might say that. I'm just struggling for words, but it does perfectly fine. Look, I guess I was born into a type of nominatively at least, culture which was Catholic. And the ethos of certainly the Catholic doctrine or catechism that we were taught, and that seemed to be just part of every adult's common sense, which they had like many sayings which they would repeat to us. So I took it to mean that it was important. And with repetition, it stuck with me that it's a sin not to use the gifts that God gave you. And that's part of the reason why I decided, look, I'll start doing live streams because it forces you to talk. It forces you to not bite your tongue. I've recorded many things and never uploaded them, and then said I must re-record that, and then the moment's gone, or the inspiration at the time's gone. And if I would re-record it, then the sort of authentic or organic, natural sound of it would be gone. Because as I said, I just don't like scripting things too much. It just doesn't sound authentic. So look, I think I've covered the diving board thing, and I've hopefully explained or put something out there towards explaining why, if there's anybody who would be offended at going to my Odyssey channel and discovering, oh no, he sounded like such a nice boy. He had, now, I don't know how people perceive any of the videos I put up, but maybe they might think, oh, he's a very serene sort of a fellow. He has a few nice pictures there of, I don't know, the sea, or what are the, I try actually, try to record some nice, pleasant videos and talk in a pleasant manner and not be too, well, not, I try not to be vulgar. And it's not because that kind of thing shocks me at all. And it's not, certainly not because I'm religious. I think religious people who get offended because they hear a bad word, I don't think that's got anything to do with religion. I think Jesus, if he existed, I think he probably did, in much the same way as it's recorded, and whatever exactly he was called, whether he was called Jesus every day or whatever, I think he had a sense of humor, and I think any God that would be worth, actually, it doesn't, you don't have to say any God that would be worth, loving or following or whatever, would have a sense of humor. It's quite plain if you look at the earth here, he'd have to have a sense of humor, and he created human beings, and we have senses of humors. Some of us do anyway. So I don't think it would be possible to create creatures with senses of humors if you didn't have one yourself. And part of having a sense of humor is not to be such a shrinking violet prude that you would get offended at rude words either. I haven't seen a comment in a while, so hopefully people haven't turned off. But that's just me being paranoid as well. And look, it shouldn't matter anyway. So I'll just say that, right? Oh, great, Lily Gazoo is there. So I was just, actually, I have to say that in my mind's eye, I did, I'll say wonder, but also worry that, she might have been offended at a video, I think a video that I might have put up. Oh, I tell you what it was. It was not a video that I'd put up, but a video that I had. Well, yeah, I put it up, but it wasn't my video, and it was somebody else. I might as well mention his name since I'm doing it now. His name was Making Shooties, or his username. And look, I haven't watched this video back now lately, but from what I remember of it, I don't think there was anything in it that I disagreed with. If I was to open the mic and talk as frankly, as forthrightly as he did, the substance of what he said wouldn't have changed much if I had said it. So I'm just talking, Lily, and what I have been talking about is the importance of saying what you believe to be true. And it's not about, oh, well, this is my truth and blah, blah, blah. I think everybody knows what's true. And we have all these lying liars, like I haven't got on to talking about yet, pretending. But I did talk about George Costanza. I think I got it this time because I was talking 10 minutes before I realized I was only talking to myself, and didn't click go live at the scheduled time that I'd said I would. But anyway, if I can get back to what I was talking about there, I keep going down levels of, and then this and then that, and then trying to remember where I was before I left off, constantly doing these tangents. But there are uncomfortable truths, right? Just like your man, it's not, is it Dan Quayle? The guy who pretend man bear pig man, right? as South Park portray him. It's not Dan Quayle, is it? No, it's not him. I'm just confusing him with the other guy. He was because he was in a Bush cabinet at the time, but the fellow who made the movie called Inconvenient Truths, and so there are inconvenient truths, yeah. So the one that we're not allowed to mention is inconvenient for some people, and it's uncomfortable for more people, I would say. And it's a truth that people don't want to recognize. Many people who consider themselves to be right thinking, but I don't want to consider myself to be good by the standards of others, right? And I think what has helped that is my ostracization by others. Thank you, Lily. Live not by lies. That's is that the opening line to some poem? Uh, Hard to do when I get banned from work for not having the special tea. Fair play to you. Look, see, I think that's another thing. It has been largely, of course, there's going to be blind luck on both sides, but it has been largely the great divider and the separator. The wheat from the chaff, people were thinking, like, to put it in biblical terms. But I don't want to say that because it sort of presumes that, well, we're the good guys. See, everyone, we're the good guys. But thank you. Yes, and I have read the essay, "Live Not by Lies." It's fantastic. Yeah, I'd highly recommend. And it was something. Maybe I'll do a live stream on it next time. Sure. Listen, with this topic, I should have thought of it to put it on, but I'll see how far I go. I'm still talking off the cuff now, and I haven't got on to what I wanted it, what I thought, was the story I was going to tell. But it doesn't matter. We're in no rush to get there as long as you're not in any rush to get there. And thank you very much, Matt. And I'll say his name, his surname. It's an unusual surname. It's Kiss My Ass Tyrants. Actually, it was a slightly different surname beforehand, so that's grand. I hope he hasn't had to open a new account. Hey, what's up, y'all? It's good to see you there, and thanks for that. Or thanks for joining, and thanks for that, Lily Solzhenitsyn. Absolutely brilliant. I would heartily recommend anybody read "Live Not by Lies," not just because it's good, but it will inspire you. Because I'm going to say this, and I'm going to bet most people are like this as well. No matter what you've discovered, no matter what you know now, right? We've all, throughout our lives, if we have climbed up the diving board and dived off, and then we got up to another level, and then climbed up the diving board and dived off again into the unknown truths. I don't want to stretch the mixed metaphor too much, but anyway, what you do is you keep improving, right? Oh God! And now I'm thinking of these sort of work metaphors, right, to do with something called lean sigma something or other, and anyone who's been in the corporate world will know it. And there was a Shugart cycle of continuous improvement. Oh God, I cringe so much because the idea is fine, and it's also like Toyota pretty much think that they own this philosophy as well of continuous improvement, figuring out where you went wrong, and then for the next iteration you improve on that gradual series of steps to improve. But look, the idea is sound, even if corporations take it and squeeze all the goodness out of it, and all that's left is this kind of disingenuous husk. But Al Gore, thanks a million, Anne Hesch's liver donation. I was saying Dan Quayle. Can you see how I might have mixed up Al Gore and Dan Quayle? Two similar characters, I thought, except that Dan Quayle was the gaff master back then before we had Biden. I'll read out this one as well. Six Sigma. Thanks a million, Abraxas. So Lily Gazoo says, maybe I'm pronouncing it wrong. Maybe it's Gazao or something. But anyway, Rod Dreher wrote a book using that for a title. Fair enough. And look, that used to be how I think intellectuals, right? And I'll explain that better to later, because I think I'll be able to get onto it. Because I'm using the word intellectuals as a placeholder, right? Because I don't think there is any such thing as an intellectual. You just grow up and you realize, all right, we're all just people pretending to know stuff. Nobody really knows what's going on. But I think that was a way that people would, of a certain people who knew that they were reading the same things, would make essentially literary nods to each other. In the same way as somebody now might make a video and make a callback to something, Rod Dreher wrote a book using that for a title. New York Times bestseller, believe it or not. There are interviews with him on YouTube. Fair play to you. Thanks a million, Lily. And look, just to finish off the thought, although I probably did, excuse me, I probably did finish the thought, but just in case, right? Because I have a tendency to not finish my sentences. I was worried that I had lost you as a subscriber. Because I mean, I'm sure everybody else in our particular circles experiences this. You put out a video and you lose 2 or 3 subscribers, and then maybe you gain a subscriber, and then it drops off again, and you feel like maybe the people are looking at it kind of going, well, I thought this guy was all right, but now he's one of these incorrigible, deplorable, istophobe kind of a guys. Well, I thought he was a nice boy, came from a nice family, and he had made a few nice, serene sounding videos, but it turns out he's one of those. And I won't say the name for it, but or all the litany of names that they call you, but all the names, all these labels they affix to you. And I've been trying to, and I'm getting some of the ways there, but I'm not fully there. But I think it's a continuous effort. You never quite get there, but you have to keep doing it. Yeah, it's like every morning you have to keep somehow getting out of bed and finding the will to put one foot forward in front of the other. And if you don't exercise, your muscles start to atrophy. So mentally too, if you don't practice at not caring what they call you, I was going to tempted to say the words that they call you, but I won't, because keeping the conversation free of hot words. Then if you don't practice, you start to care again about what these people think of you, these people whose opinions of you definitely should not care about, because these people are not people who live in the truth at all. And they don't really even think, like, if they call you these things, they don't even think that you are that. It's just like magic spells. They're like low level wizards who know 1 or 2 words of a spell to try and hurl at you, hoping one of them will stick. And so I should have known better. I should have thought better. I should have had more respect for Lily and anybody who follows the truth or loves the truth enough so that they would sacrifice anything for it, which is, endure the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. I'm always having that poem, If, right? I think it is that poem, If, or maybe I'm thinking of a Shakespeare play. Look, I don't know, but a lot of these things. Well, I was thinking the poem If by Rudyard Kipling, but the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune. Maybe is that out of Hamlet? Anyway, there's a lot of phrases. I'm not that well read, just read a few things, and a lot of these phrases are always whirling about. So anyway, should have had a lot more respect for Lily to know that she was somebody who wouldn't be so petty as to say, well, I heard him say a bad word there, or I heard him saying or implying something that might have been critical about a certain group of people. Harumph, well, I'm off then, I had a feeling there was lean in it, but maybe that was because I did a cut down version of it, Lean Six Sigma or something like that. But these kind of certifications that you have to have in order to be compliant with the corporate blah blah blah, you know what I mean? Look, I suppose that is a good enough juncture to segue off into what I kind of thought was going to be 1 or 2 of the main talking points, because it's going to be stories from the corporate halls of power or whatever, and I wasn't somebody who was powerful, but I did rub shoulders with people who were quite powerful, and I suppose in a certain way I was. Now I don't want to say I was on the inner circle or anything like that, but I drank with the guys and spent time with them, and not high ranking stuff, but they were on the inside. The phrase that we used, by the way, everything was military in our corporation, and the reasons why became clear to me, just bit by bit and gradually. And there were certain revelations which made it feel like not exactly pulling the rug out from underneath me, but do you know in one of those Hitchcock movies, and it's a very famous scene, and it might be, I think it's probably Vertigo. It would have to be Vertigo, where there's a camera on a dolly, and the camera obviously has a zoom lens, and the dolly is pushed backwards while he zooms the zoom lens to go and focus closer and closer. So the two motions kind of cancel each other out, but it gives a certain effect of vertigo. And that's how I felt a lot of the time with certain revelations, both being just out in the world generally, or being online and learning certain things, where it really was such a revelation to me that it rocked my world between the two pillars, or whatever, or it felt like the two pillars of Hercules were tumbling down, or that Atlas was shrugging and the world was collapsing. But anyway, the or the what am I trying to say? The reason why everything was sort of military parlance, I began to realize, was because the corporation, oh, it's part of the military industrial complex. Now, I'm not trying to say that it was special or I was special because of that. Because sure, don't they have their tentacles in every corporation, and certainly every corporation above a certain size. But I've worked for more than one corporation that is a household name and is global. And so when you are within a corporation like that, you get to see that one day it dawns on you and you realize, oh, I'm part of a representative sample of the population of the world. So whatever they're trying to do here, they're trying to do to the world. And so that's why, in a way, I gradually could see not exactly what was going to happen, or see what did happen, but see all the characteristic parallels, the mindset, the attitudes that were going on, and see how every single person who I worked with, for so long, who I considered to be a friend, and who were at the same level as me, and got their promotions and moved up the ladder, or the ziggurat lickety split, that I could see how they changed. And as soon as they got to a point where they were either knocking on the door of being at a certain level, where they were part of the club, just the club of on the management side rather than on the worker side, how their personalities changed overnight, to the point where you realized, oh, I never knew them. They were never a nice person or a decent person. And if they ever complained about the way that staff were being treated, it was only because they didn't like that it was happening to them. They didn't have any moral framework, or they weren't speaking from a position of principle where they felt that the thing that was happening was wrong. They just didn't like that it was happening to them, but they would be perfectly fine with it if it wasn't happening to them. And worse than that, they took great pleasure, sadistic pleasure, in doing it to others as soon as that they were on the other side of the fence, which has its parallels, of course, to, the way there's a group of people who you would think, well, if such a great persecution was done to them, you would think they would be the last people to want to persecute others then, wouldn't you? Whether they be other neighbors of theirs, or people who they displaced from their land, or everyone else in the world, especially, people like you and me, whose ancestors may well have either saved them directly or given them safe harbor, or a new country where they could come and say, you're free to build a new life here and we welcome you into our society. So nobody write the answer, okay? Nobody write. We all know what we're talking about. And even to refer to them obliquely like this, you can be sure if there's anybody listening who didn't agree, they'd be like, shut it down. Oh, he's a virulent. And I was thinking of a euphemism for it. Do you remember Bart Simpson had an Auntie Patty and Auntie Selma? So somebody who doesn't like Auntie Selma, there's an Auntie Selma-ite. Or somebody who does like Auntie Selma-ite. So very good. Anyway, I'm looking at the comments there, and Abraxas. I'm pretty sure I knew that Abraxas was into the old numerology, and he's discovered that sigma is the 18th letter of the Greek alphabet. Very, very good. And that 18, I'll give you that. 18 is 3 6s, 666. I'll give you that. Fair play to you. And then Lily's looking at the logo, and The belt system. Well, the belt is a conveyor belt, as far as Toyota would say, or any other company, that you streamline your assembly process and your distribution process and that kind of thing. Um, Look, I might as well. I was going to show you a couple of videos, right? Not mine, one by Paul Joseph Watson. Um, just for a particular word there, which I learned today, and I'll leave it till a little bit later, right? Because I think I want to try and have some kind of coherency and flow to this. Just going to take a quick drink of water. But yeah, I'm thinking about like what way this will naturally lead into something. Like I say, it wasn't. I didn't want to script this, and if something seems to be naturally flowing in a certain direction, then why fight it? So I like that anyway. Miss Maskless there says anti-serpent. Yeah, that's a good euphemism. I don't know, and I'll say this right because look, okay, there's a balance as well. I don't have to march on while there's something else to be said, and while I'm able to be relatively fluent. I don't know if you're watching. What's her name? Is it Amazingly Grace? Amazing Grace? Really Grace? I think it's Really Graceful. Really Graceful. She's a red-haired woman from Atlanta, I think, and she's got a very soft Atlanta accent. Or maybe it's a Georgia accent. Probably a Georgia accent, not necessarily Atlanta. Anyway, she's very good. And because she sounds so softly spoken, you'd never imagine that she was a virulent anti-serpent person, you know. um, and I'm sort of, it's amusing because I'm thinking of like, all of us who appear so well. I'll say for the sake of the imaginary joke that we're all so angelic faced, and they were also mild mannered, right? With such gentle dispositions. It reminds me of the opening and closing to the film Unforgiven. Nobody could ever understand why such a lovely woman as whatever her name was ever took up with such a mean lowdown, um, shooting women and children and everything that ever lived and walked and crawled upon this earth. Man such as William Money. So maybe in the opposite way, nobody can understand why such a sweet and gentle person as really graceful, right? She's so graceful, and yet it turns out, wow, she was a virulent anti-serpentite. Okay, but she introduced a new term into the lexicon for people who are always trying to um, dance around the landmines, the verbal landmines, and she called it a TT. So I think this is, I'm getting very close, too close to it, right? I'll just say this because I want to really try and do my best to see if certain things can be left unsaid. Because then if you leave it all unsaid and they come in and they go, "Oh, you're a virulent anti something or other," right? That they give themselves away. You go, "What was anti-Semitic about that?" I've had a few conversations on YouTube, rather written text conversations, where you say one or two things. You just observe a pattern, and then in they come. They go, "Oh, you're just a," and then other people, and they might be uh, wearing glasses from that what's his name, Carpenter, John Carpenter movie that a lot of people got reacquainted with, where he wears the shades. They might be wearing those shades, and they might be not. They might be just innocent, which is lovely, and it's very. There's a lot of sense of humor to that as well. You get a great laugh out of it when, whether they're wearing shades or not, they might innocently be saying, "But what's anti something about that? Like, I don't understand." And then those people are like, foiled again. I mean, it would be hilarious if none of it affected us in our lives, in everything. But kind of lost my run of myself there because I went off on a couple of sub tangents. But yeah, the phrase was TT for not the not the New Testament, not the Old Testament, but the voluminous uh, number of books which a certain what's the word can I say, clique of people. I wanted to use a different word than that. A certain culture of people use. And maybe, as I've only started learning relatively recently, it seems that perhaps most of them are followers of these books rather than the Old Testament, like not the Torah, not the Tanakh, but something else. So she calls them anyway the T types, the TTs. So it would be difficult to shut down any talk of TTs, wouldn't it? Right. Now, I think I will move on then, right? And I would have liked to have scripted this. I would have liked to have written down the story because I'm desperate not to, because this is live, right? I'm desperate not to name the corporation. I shouldn't say that or it'll come popping out. But anyway, I might as well get into it now, right? So my story from the corporate environment, I have many of them, and they sometimes reoccur to me, and I say, I must. Oh, Abraxas, you went and done it. Nobody put the answers, right? The answers will be handed out later. At the and there's no turning to the back of the book. Matt is written there. Yeah, okay, that's a great way of writing it there. I like that sort of thing. Things are real, right? And the things that are real military, along with every other government, let's say, on the planet. That's all right. I mean, sometimes I over self censor. Has personnel dedicated to yes, and I remember learning the names of the um, groups that they have for those things, and don't write them in the comments either just yet. They're not so well known, the names of the people. But I know there was a building there, and it was 18. I think it was 1800 something, 8100, 8200. Maybe that's what it was, 8200 something or other, and they were known as the 8200s at some point. But even from the 70s, there was um, a name for a group that was like a PR group. They just called it PR. And of course, you can put a nice name on something. It's just public relations, right? But you're dead right. And as Abraxas said, and I know he likes the sort of, as I do too, dissecting English or re-examining it or saying it in a different way, pulling the syllables apart. So corp oration is the dead people speak. Yeah, to orate is to speak, and the corpus is a body. And Lily Kazoo there, look, we'll have to mention it because it's a mainstream talking about now. And this is one of the many patterns, right? If it's not a Bernie Madoff, it's a Sam Bankman-Fried, and it is almost like they're sort of saying, okay, look, people still continue to fail to notice. It's almost like they're trying to set them up as well, isn't it? And I still keep a certain percentage reserved in my mind that, yeah, they are all doing it, but a certain amount of people are setting them up as well, above them too. Yeah, I could be on board with that. And people say, oh, see, if that proves it's not them at all, it's really the Knights Templar, it's really the Illuminati, or it's really the, what do they call them? The Jesuits, really the Jesuits. Look, call a rose by another name, it would smell as rotten if it was rotten, wouldn't it? Smell of sweet is the original saying. And look, I know that's Shakespeare, but I can't remember what that's out of. Not that it matters. Is it Romeo and Juliet? Um, so yeah, look, I mean, seeing as I'm guessing there's only a small little what should I say, uh, exclusive group here, right? That's something to make it sound better. And by the way, and it is, and I really appreciate there's anybody here listening. So if there's a group of 2 or 3 or 4, that's fantastic. And it's, I'm not trying to be sort of self-effacing by saying that is more than I hoped for. I really thought that I might be talking to myself, so I'm delighted for it. English. Hello, English. Engelman. Angelman. Yeah, and you know the way people on Facebook sort of, what do they call them? I don't know I can't think now, and I don't want to be too critical of a demographic of people. But there's a certain type of woman or mother who is always talking about her little angles. My little angles, even though she probably hates her little brats. But on Facebook, she's talking about her little angles. And you're like, oh my God, angels, if that's what you're trying to say. But one day it occurred to me that angel and angle are so spelt because they are, or only by rearranging the last 2 letters, because they are totally interrelated. But look, I don't want to go down that tangent because that'll send me totally distracted. And I said might as well mention Sam. We'll call him Sam from now on, right? Because it might be anti-something or other, anti-bankman, to keep saying his name. But look, I'll get onto my corporate story in a minute. I might as well do the little video about Paul Joseph Watson, right? And Bernie Madoff. He made off with lots of cash. Exactly. And it's like maybe back then people were just a little bit more clever, and they were able to make little puns, right? Oblique references to what he did, rather than just, he's the bank man, get the bank man, right? Get them, right? Maybe they have to keep sort of saying, how much more obvious do we have to make it for these idiot humans? So quality over quantity, brother. I'm not quite sure what that's in relation to. But anyway, right, that gives me an opportunity to play this Paul Joseph Watson video, and I'll mute my mic now, and I'll add this to the stream. You maybe have seen it, maybe not, but we'll just look at it again, okay? Even if you have seen it.
CEO Sam Bankman-Fried let slip a stunning admission. Bankman-Fried is being characterized as the biggest con man since Bernie Madoff after the collapse of cryptocurrency trading firm FTX. CNN reports customers who invested their money in the platform may be left with nothing. SBF, as he's known, was the largest donator to Joe Biden during the 2020 presidential election. Some are calling this guy the second biggest donor ever to Democratic candidates behind George Soros. Before the demise of FTX, which saw Bankman-Fried's personal net worth collapse 94% in a single day, Bankman-Fried had been the quintessential woke virtue signaler, boosting all the right progressive narratives. He was an advocate of effective altruism, using capitalism to make billions of dollars and then giving it away to philanthropic causes, or more accurately, using it to fund far-left political agendas and globalist pet political candidates. But in an interview conducted via Twitter DMs with Vox's Kelsey Piper, Bankman-Fried admitted it was all just one huge smokescreen when asked about his previous effective altruism stance and the whole ethics-driven personality he had crafted for himself. SBF replied, quote, "Man, all the dumb shit I said, it's not true, not really." He agreed with Piper that all the, quote, ethics stuff was mostly a front. Bankman-Fried, who only a few weeks ago appeared before Congress to demand more intense regulation of his industry, told Piper during the interview, quote, "Fuck regulators." But here's the kicker. He also acknowledged that wokery was just a front, that rich elitists used to communicate that they're a team player within the regime. Bankman-Fried said, quote, "It's a dumb game we woke Westerners play where we say all the right shibboleths and so everyone likes us." Elon Musk responded to the revelation by tweeting, "I believe in vice signaling. They'll pretend he never said it," said Ian Miles Chong. Hell, most of the woke people I know who got to elevated social and corporate positions secretly loathe that they have to play this game where they pretend to be woke. Interesting point this showcases, noted Kyle Kashov. It's not only that he said all the right things, but that he became the second largest Democrat donor. The fact that everyone knows wokeness is dumb and still pay the tithe, that's power. And there you have it. For all these billionaires, wokery is just an empty loyalty oath to prove your obedience to the establishment. It has zero basis in altruism, ethics, or good faith arguments. And like Bankman-Fried's entire operation, it's one giant vacuous con game.
Right. Well, if you're able to hear me again now, then what I did there is just stop before he goes on to sell plots of land or nominative plots of land that are, I don't know, 1 foot square, but you probably can't take ownership of it anyway. Now, get rid of his face there. It doesn't look so good. Oh my god. Okay, so what can I do? It's maybe better to go back to that little picture. But there was something that I wanted to pick out of that. Well, look, obviously, first of all, that how are you making shooties? First of all, I wanted to pick out of that he's saying, look, I think we all know this, and I do know it, but sometimes I keep giving them the benefit of the doubt, despite how much I know. And by the way, Megan Shooties, I think I did mention you already, but don't write any hot words in the stream there or in the comment section. We can. I think it's a nice, fun game to practice obliquely referring to them. Sort of making references that only imply something. It's a good game. I suppose it teaches us to think a bit more laterally as well. But anyway, that was something that was it made me sick how sickly saccharine sweet they were. In other words, how artificial they were in their pretense that they cared about us. And I'm talking about the corporation now, which at one point I realized was quite close to the center of the big octopus. If I'm referring back to a picture, which I don't have to hand now, but I included it in a video I made. I can't think of the title of it just off by hand, but it was one that I liked very much, and it was about Solzhenitsyn was in it, and also the android from Blade Runner, if you know the one I'm talking about. And I talked about basically that all governments have been taken over by corporations. Now you could say the military-industrial complex is the corporation that owns, let's say, for sake of argument, the Fortune 500 corporations, all the big tech, everything else, So what was I going to say there? And I keep making the mistake of reading some of the comments and then forgetting to talk and then losing my train of thought. But I'm delighted that you are commenting. When it's not that I was naive and then suddenly became awakened in the same way as nobody here suddenly became not woke, but enlightened or aware, just aware of more and more things that are going on. So it is a gradual process, but there are waypoints in the road, in the journey, where you kind of go, now that was a fairly big day of learning, a big revelation, which has maybe seismically shifted my understanding, or it has added a huge amount to my understanding. But at the same time, no matter how much I learn, I keep falling back in a little way, just like I was talking about maybe having confidence to speak publicly or do anything, push yourself, like Reg from Alaska, push yourself to jump into icy water, even though you know it's going to be unpleasant. And for me, jumping off a diving board, even though you know that you're frightened, but you do it anyway. You feel the fear and you do it anyway, which was a very famous self-help book. Probably, if it wasn't in the 80s, maybe it was 90s or 70s. I don't know. Because it's important. Otherwise, like it's a bit like Scent of a Woman, I know it's not Scent of a Woman, but that's useful as well. Like that, you might be afraid not only to dance and make a video yourself, but ask a girl to dance. But if you don't, you just sit there. A bit like other things that you could do. You sit there on your hands doing nothing. And you never get to live life. And I think it was in Dead Poet Society, you never suck the marrow out of life. And then the other movie I was thinking of was Shawshank Redemption, where you either get busy living or you get busy dying. And the more you're afraid to do something, the more things there are that you're afraid to do. But anyway, I've kind of said all that, and I'm going to try and focus now on the two things that I want us to talk about coming out of Paul Joseph Watson's video. Although I think it's his secondary channel called Anything Goes, and it's that they pretend to care, right? So there's two things to come out of that, right? They're always disingenuous. And it's not just the group of people that I know Macon Shooties referred to stridently, but it's a vast number of our own. And as Macon Shooty said, they slowly changed what we value as Europeans in the West, and that enables a lot of what they get away with. Yeah, sure. But no, I mean, you feel free to disagree, but don't necessarily write too much of a explanation in the comment section there. But my and it could be, it might change my mind in the future, but you might be more pragmatic about this, you see. My personal attitude is that, and I'm sure you're familiar with the idea that there is an enemy outside the gates and there's traitors within, you know. So I'm sure we've all discovered that, the big test was I'll say the vid cons, right? But Brian Young from High Impact, that's his sort of trademark, the convids. But anyway, it was like the acid test, the litmus test. Who is really my friend and who isn't? Who will really have my back and who won't? Who will support me in dire need and who won't? And for me, it turned out nobody. The answer is nobody. You know the way they say, like, well, in times of crisis, you learn who your true friends are. And then I realized, I don't have any true friends at all. Now, look, maybe that's a little bit unfair. Maybe there are a few people who maybe I haven't seen that often, or have lost touch with, or whatever, and they wouldn't have scarpered or turned tail or whatever. I thought as soon as it happened, I said, right, this is it, boys, this is it, lads, this is it, boys, this is war. The president is on the line. He's locking us down, but we're not going to stand for it. That's I'm channeling Nina 99 Luftballon. Do you speak German? Make it cheaties, I don't. 99 Luftballon. I only speak a few words that I learned here and there. But that was the version that was #1 in the US charts, and I'm pretty sure in the UK and other parts of the world, if it was #1 or top 5 or whatever, but it was in the top 10 for a long, long time. It was just called 99 Red Balloons, and she sung it in English as well. Nana was her name. But anyway, see, I have a tendency to go off on these tangents and then forget what I was talking about. Damn it. But it was the great divider, wasn't it? The great separator and the great revealer. Who's your friend and who isn't? And it's no one. So as far as good man, Jack there. As far as the enemy, let's say, and as far as then the traitors, the turncoats, and it's the story. I mentioned it in something else there recently. I'm always afraid to repeat myself, but look, why not? If it's true, it's true, and it's relevant, is relevant. It's the story of Peter denying that he knew Jesus, right? So some Pharisees or whoever comes along and says, "Here, listen, we're looking for this terrible anti," and I'll channel another Seinfeld episode where Bryan Cranston plays the dentist, right? And Jerry Seinfeld says something critical about him, and they all start calling Jerry Seinfeld an anti-dentite, right? For discriminating against this dentist. He's an anti-dentite, all right? And so, oh God, where am I going with this? Yeah. As soon as you might say anything bad about the enemy, right? As soon as you might even sort of say, don't take this thing that the enemy wants you to take, they'd go, how dare you, some kind of paranoid anti-dentite or whatever, So that has been much more of a kick in the gut, a sucker punch. It's more like it's something that I feel in my chest, as though I had been stabbed in the heart, I suppose. It's not just a punching in the gut. It's much more of a, that the wind was taken out of me. I suppose that's more what it feels like. The wind was taken out of me from my lungs. I felt totally deflated. And that has disappointed me. I mean, it's one thing to learn that people who you felt sorry for your whole life and you thought, well, they must be protected and it's terrible. Isn't it terrible what happened to them? Oh, it's terrible indeed what happened to them. Never again, never again. And then you find out they're persecuting people and have been since they got their country. Okay, I'm getting too close to the mark now. But what is far worse is when you grew up with people, your own family and friends and everybody you knew pretty much, right? Is that all the values that they espoused, all the principles they claimed to stand for and uphold, they never believed any of it. They were only spouting it off because that's what everybody else seemed to be saying. So very, very few people will ever say, this is what I believe, and I'm going to continue to say that I believe in it, no matter what. And I'll say the word opprobrium, even though I'm probably not pronouncing it right. But sometimes only ridiculous big words come to me when a similar one would much more suitable. But you know, the kind of bile and public disgrace that they try and heap on you. Oh, I thought he was a good person. I've said this already anyway. How dare you, as Owen Benjamin would say, how dare you, how dare you. It shows me what cowards these people are. What spineless, supine cowards they are. And how it's not just how disappointing and how disgusting it is, but it's a real sucker punch because it takes you by it definitely pulls the rug out what you thought was part of your foundation out from underneath you when you find out that your family don't care to talk to you anymore. And I didn't mean to. One of the things that I was avoiding saying was that there was any discord or fracture within my own personal life, family, or friends. Because if there is a supercomputer listening, an aggregate of all the networked computers and data centers computing based on some kind of arithmetic that's got some kind of fuzzy logic baked into an artificial intelligence that's able to plan my next moves or know what group of people to place me in, therefore how to best manipulate me. I didn't want to give it any ammunition or any information. I wanted to keep the amount of data low. But as I may or may not have said, because I didn't click record or didn't click go live for about 10 minutes, there came a point when I realized, and I was inspired by other people. I might as well say his name, give him a shout out now. But I was inspired by other people to say my piece as well, even if I'm reiterating what these people are saying. That if there is an afterlife, and if the coach then says, "Why didn't you give it your best shot?" and I go, "Well, the other people were hitting the ball, and I thought, you know, they were perfectly capable of scoring goals. They were scoring goals, and they were doing whatever. So, what was the point in me helping out?" And well, I guess it's a good argument to sort of go through the motions and run up and down the field a bit, but not really put your best foot forward. But it's not using the gifts that God gave you. It's not fulfilling your potential. So it kind of feels like there's a moral obligation to at least speak. It's like what they say in the beginning of marriages, you know, object now or forever hold your peace. And maybe that's important. You know, maybe it really is relevant. You know, object, use your voice, object vociferously to what's happening. Otherwise, it might be assumed that you agree with what's happening. That does seem to be a rule, doesn't it? So I guess my attitude is that, and other people might be more pragmatic, just to save what we have, and it doesn't matter, and there'll be another generation and teach them right and whatever, you know. And I absolutely would say that. Do not leave your children in ignorance. You're sending them out like lambs amongst wolves or whatever the biblical saying is, you know. I'm not going to get into the Mandela effect, and I'm also not going to start talking about Mandela. Got to leave some subjects for another time. And yeah, I agree with making shooties. Nobody's going to come and save us, right? So whether you believe in God or not, I don't believe in a rapture, pre or post tribulation. If God exists, I believe that he has forsaken this planet. I think at some point in the past, so it's God forsaken. I believe we're like spoiled miscreant children who thought we knew best. And God said, fine, if you think you can do well without me, I'm off then. Bye-bye now, bye-bye now. Maybe I'll pop back in 2,600 years to see how you're going. I might just take a look in, but I'm not going to interfere because remember, you said you wanted to do it all on your own, just like a parent might say to its wayward toddler, you know? Oh, no, that's fine. No, you can walk home, you know? No, you've got your own 2 feet there, you know? Oh, no, you didn't want to get in the car. You know what I mean? So yeah, Martin or making shooties is practical minded. He's pragmatic. He's saying just, you know, homeschool and doodly do. I have to say that my mindset and where I am at the moment is that I wouldn't quite call it retribution, but it's along the lines, you know. I am sore. I am aggrieved, you know, and having discovered that all of my own people were such hypocrites and are just prepared to believe whatever seems to be the zeitgeist, you know, whatever is your going values and what have you, you know. Oh, is that what we believe in now? Oh, that seems to be the way the wind is blowing. They're all like jellyfish. They just go along with the current, you know, and that infuriates me. And I guess it infuriates me more than the fact that there's a subtle enemy, But anyway, what I'll say is in the corporation that I worked in, I was always trying to say, what's the common denominator here? Are they all part of, let's say, the Masons, right? Is that what it is? Is that the club they belong to? Or is it just an old school tie thing? Do they belong to just, do they all go to certain schools or one school or whatever? Is that why they're all looking out for each other? But look, making shooters there says big agree. Maybe he's not sure who's agreeing with someone in the chat or me. But I mean, we can all be right at the same time. It's just what we focus on at different times. And look, if it's important for all of us, me included, I try and remind myself, keep my emotions in check, because when you act in an emotional state, whether it's anger or anything else, uncontrolled anger, let's say, if it's not a controlled anger, if the anger has consumed you, then of course you're likely to make mistakes, Lily Gazoo says the cups of tea are causing brain problems with me, or maybe is that just me being paranoid that I think that any comment like that is about me. But I realized that there was a few things going on, and there certainly, whatever the club was, there was a club. And as I say, I remember, I might as well say this while I think of it, right? I was much younger. I was in my early 20s, and I was working for a corporation, again, a massive household global name, an IT company. And at that time, I remember they changed from IT to ICT. It never really caught on, but they changed from information technology to information communication technology. I thought, yeah, all right, phones as well, whatever. But you can see how things got much more communicationable. It's not just information technology, because it's not just databases anymore. I didn't really envisage it at all, that the internet would be so much about communication in this way. And that it wouldn't be one-to-one, it'd be one-to-many and many-to-many, and all these kind of social media. I thought they were all just frivolous things. But I think that back in the late 90s, early 2000s, that there were people who had this vision of where it was going and what they wanted to build and why, and how it would be easy, or maybe not easy, but how it would be useful to manipulate a lot of people and get information on a lot of people, of course. And I think they probably knew that it would be a double-edged sword, just like we're discovering as well. Look, I keep saying I'm going to get on with it, but this story anyway. I remember, okay, here's one of the corporate stories. It wasn't the one that I intended to tell, but look, who knows? I mean, I'm going something a bit more than an hour, I think, at the moment. We'll see how it goes. Maybe I could do 2 hours. Because look, there's no time like the present. So I would have been in my early 20s, and it would have been late 90s. And, I felt that I was, look, as far as the internet goes, most people didn't have it. And if they did have it, they had it maybe at work if they worked for a big corporation. And if they were rich, they had a computer and a modem, but they didn't have fast internet. And, you could download pictures and you could look at websites that had pictures on it. There wasn't really any streaming. Well, there certainly wasn't streaming movies. You could maybe download a real player movie, and there might have been a precursor to YouTube, like a Macromedia video. But look, I'll stop talking like I'm Grandpa Simpson with onions in my belt, because that was the style at the time. So the setting is a grey carpeted, very open plan office, and we all have our cubicles. And yeah, it was a cubicle, which was luxury at the time, because other offices that I've been in, then you're just sitting beside people practically. But at least these were like, they weren't offices, but you had a desk at three edges, and you had some glass for privacy, and you could be on the phone and you could kind of duck down and you wouldn't be heard. And anyway, if you wanted a private phone call, I mean. But I remember when all of us employees, and there was quite a lot of people. But now in my particular group or department, could have been like 100 or so. And then in my team, in that particular group or department, something like maybe 20. And certainly we in that group of 20. And then, it sort of got out that, everyone in the department pretty much felt the same way. And Lily Gazoo says she's drinking Barry's Irish breakfast tea. I think I prefer Lyons, Lyons, but not that it matters. But I appreciate the sentiment. Maybe I can't even tell the difference. But I appreciate that. And I like that you're sort of saying I'm there with you in spirit. Sure, I'll have a cup of tea. And I'll have one of the scones. I bet you did bake scones. But anyway, right, getting on with the story. Get on with it. These fellows began to get disgruntled, as I did, that we weren't being paid. The company, by the way, kept saying, you are our most valuable assets. We love you so much. And from the Paul Joseph Watson thing there, you see, it didn't seem like that they were being sincere. They were disingenuous then, as they are now. All these corporate types. And it's an ethos, it's an attitude, it's a cultural type of sensibility. It's a culture that flows through the corporations. And where does it come from? That's what I was always trying to figure out. Where does it come from? And it definitely flows from the top. But people act as willing conduits for it. And I can't help reading the comments. Savagery, Earl Grey, straight up. we got a Captain Picard over here. Earl Grey, straight up, no lemon, none of that frilly stuff. Just give me the Earl Grey and shut up and down the hatch. Or maybe put some German Jägermeister in it. I don't know. Right, back to the story. And we weren't being paid enough. Now, obviously, every employee feels they're not being paid enough, and every employer resents paying his employees whatever he's paying them. And I'll put it this way: at the time, we were being paid less per hour than a McDonald's employee, and we thought, oh, the humanity, oh, that's so unfair. But of course, I mean, I look back at that now, and I sort of say, well, that was a bit. What's the word? I'm embarrassed to say it, but I'm telling you the truth. That we compared ourselves to McDonald's workers and considered that we were being underpaid if we were being paid less than McDonald's worker, because the assumption there, and I'm going to say it's a false assumption, is that we're providing something better than the McDonald's employees are providing. No matter what you think of the quality of the food, that somehow we're more deserving. It's kind of rich of us, isn't it, to consider that, well, we must be being abused if we're only being paid a bit less than them. Anyway, that was our main gripe. And, look, certainly it was a pittance as far as, I mean, the salary that I was getting, and I was in my early 20s, my parents could have married when they were in their early 20s. I think they waited till their mid 20s. But we all know that even in the 90s, certainly now, you cannot, as a man, or even a man and a woman, say, oh, I know, we'll combine our salaries and buy a house and start a family. So that was a gauge mark. And also, I wouldn't have been able to afford not a new car, but not even a second-hand car, and be able to afford to insure it and pay road tax and put fuel in it and whatnot, So most aggrieved. But then again, I wasn't very good with my money either. I know. So there was most of the people who worked in this corporation at the time, if they weren't sort of senior management, and in that case, then they'd be maybe as old as my parents, or seemed as old as my parents, but everyone else, they were my age. Team leaders and whatnot, they might be, say, 3 or 5 years older than me, and they seemed like big brothers and big sisters, But so I drank too much, and it was a big culture then with us that every Friday we'd go drinking for sure, and a lot of times during the week. So it was still like party time for me. So it wasn't. I have to say there was some fault on my side as well. I was reckless, and I didn't have an eye to the future. We talk about delayed gratification. I was not really prudent as far as the future went. But anyway, I better move on with the story. The fellows and some girls, it was, as I say, it was a computery IT company, and so there was some women in there, and we all felt that we were being treated unfairly. And they said to me, because we'd go outside and we'd have a cigarette and moan and complain. And maybe I would put it in such a way that they'd sort of say, "Oh, I like the way you put that, and you speak quite well now about it." And you know, I knew that there was a certain corporate speak and lexicon that the sort of, I'm sure you all know the kind of language that I call it corporate speak, that these corporate types use. So if you speak their language, and maybe it's important now to bring in a certain word, which I will from Paul Joseph Watson's video, which he introduced us to there. If you speak their language, you maybe mark yourself out to them as like one of them. And so everyone understands that, whether you know this word or not, and it's called shibboleth, shibboleth, or maybe it's siboleth. Um, it's a way to indicate to other people, right? And it's a Hebrew word, maybe that you're in a certain social class or in a certain secret club. If you say the abracadabra word, oh, right. And it might maybe make people more receptive to what you have to say. Ingratiate yourself with them a little bit. So they said to me, look, would you put our concerns, or will you express our grievances to management? And there was a hubbub of disagreement, like generally, and had been going on for a while. And management were aware that most of the staff were disgruntled, unhappy, um, and that it got to a point, and maybe, like, again, it's parallel to society. It gets to a point where the government or the management team feels that they need to do something about it, right? And maybe they might first start with trying to, you can either use the carrot or the stick. You can use the stick to try and beat it down a bit, or then you could use the carrot to try and be nice. And you can kind of use the rope-a-dope or the judo move, or of kind of moving to the side and allow your enemy to exert its energy as you sidestep it. And I think that's the tactic that they used. So anyway, it got to, and this was, as I say, a mega hyper global meganet type corporation. So it got to head office, and the whatever senior management team, or whatever they call it, and they decided that they were going to fly over to us, and they were going to hear our concerns. They were very anxious to hear our concerns, and of course, this is how I was naive. I thought, oh wow, um, they actually do care. They want to solve this problem, and they want to hear our concerns. And somebody should have told me, never, ever, ever believe that. So if you're younger and naive, never believe them when they say they just want to learn more about your concerns so they can help you to fix them. No, it'll be a way for them to divide and conquer and grab more power and regulate more things, create more rules for the good of society and for the greater good and all that sort of stuff. Just trying to help everyone. Just like Elon, right, is definitely not helping everyone, right. But again, no need to go down that now. So they flew over, and of course they would have loved flying over. They love any excuse to hop in a plane, fly first class, book themselves into a lovely hotel, spend the week, if not the week, or yeah, the weekend, if not the week, and get a free holiday. And um, I'll leave it till another time, but I won't, no point in mentioning it now. But I'll leave it sort of implied that men and women, and no matter what they're into and whatever, they love flying into a different country because, like, what goes on tour stays on tour. That's a good way of putting it, right? And it's not just the men, right? The women do it as well. Nobody's a saint here. Anyway, lovely hotel, and they have this conference. So yeah, well, thanks, Lily. But I think as long as I'm not overstepping the mark here at the moment. So we're in this room, and I might as well skip forward, otherwise I'll never get the story told. We're in this great conference room, and there's a massive oak table, or maybe it's walnut or something, and all these management team are sitting there, and there's a big, big, big series of windows behind them, right? So that, I mean, I hated that if I was going for an interview, and the people, or the panel, let's say, but it might be 2 or 3 people, but maybe there's more who might be interviewing you. They all sit across from you. It's adversarial to start off with, um, like that they're opposing you, like if it's a chessboard, um, and it already sets up a dynamic that creates a whole atmosphere. And maybe that's the point. They want you on the back foot. They want you ill at ease. They want to unsettle you, and they want to give themselves the upper hand and the advantage, psychologically speaking. But also, there's a physical aspect to it, because if the windows are behind them, and especially if the light is shining through it, that's in your eyes, and your eyes can't focus on them properly. It's intimidating, right? So we go in there, and they're all sitting at this oak table, and it's like a church, really, in a way, because my 100 or so colleagues, or maybe there's more, are all sitting down, or maybe someone's standing at the back of this room, and then a lot of my team are sitting directly behind me and with me, and I felt like I'm amongst friends here. It's like two enemies roll up to the battle line, and it was clear that I had more numbers with me, because it was only maybe, say, not sure if 7 or 8, less than 10, I would say, people sitting at this big sort of oval oak table. And I'm not sure if anybody spoke before me or not, but anyway, when it was my time to get up, and by the way, this was at a time when we wore suits to work anyway, or certainly shirt and tie. Casual Fridays was when you could you didn't have to wear a tie, but you had to wear formal slacks, no jeans, and that kind of thing. So it was still quite formal. And I had sort of practiced in my mind what I was going to say, and maybe I must have anyway, and I must have thought in my mind that there was an order a sequence in which I was going to outline or enumerate our particular grievances, and I felt like, well, I can't start off by just going in and, blurting out, "We're being underpaid, pay us more, da-da," and that's it. I figure you have to finesse them a bit. You have to lead up to it, just like with everything, right? There's a certain amount of finessing. You can't just jump right in. So I wanted to be respectful as well. I didn't want to be adversarial with them. I didn't want to come across as being aggressive. I wanted to sound like I was somebody who could be reasoned with, somebody who was rational. And I wanted them to be impressed with me, so they'd sort of say, "All right, this is a good guy. Why would we want to pay him? And if the other people are like him as well, and he's being respectful to us, why wouldn't we give them the courtesy of a living wage as well? Something they could actually, at the very least, afford to be able to rent somewhere and run a car as well, so that they could afford to live somewhere and come to and from work. That's not too much to ask when you put it that way. But they definitely don't want to have a society where that's possible. And it really hasn't been possible for all my working life. Everyone's always chasing the rising tide and trying to climb above it. And I guess that's what I'm getting at here. But let me tell the story. I won't jump ahead quite yet. So I started off with small beans. They say, "Well, we want to hear your views, and we want to hear your gripes." I don't know if they said gripes, but if they did, I thought that was an ugly word. I said, "No, look, we're not griping. We don't want this to be characterized that we're just complaining, especially not just for the sake of it. I mean, our concerns are legitimate." And that's the kind of thing you can't say. If you would say, "I'm complaining about this," then they always try to characterize you as, "Oh, well, you're just a negative Nancy then. You're always so negative about everything." I didn't want to give them that ammunition. So I said to them, "Well, look," and as is happening now, I said, "Look, we talk a lot on the phone. We talk a lot in the office, and maybe it's the air conditioning as well, but it's very dry, and your throat gets dry when you're talking a lot. And in most offices, it's just a standard thing. There's a few water coolers around. But in our place, there's only a vending machine, and you have to buy bottles of water, but there's no water coolers. There's no free water." And I was hardly finished saying it, and I didn't say, like, "So here's what we want." They said, "Oh, really? We didn't know that. Oh my God, that's terrible. Right. We didn't realize this was going to be so easy. Done, absolutely done deal. No quibble at all." That's obviously an oversight. We didn't. If only we'd known. If only we knew. So I kind of thought, based on this, And they said, we'll fix that right away. So no sooner said than it's done. So I thought, oh, this is going great. And I think maybe I might have said something else, built up a little bit more, and said, well, sometimes there's this, that, and the other. This feels like, or sounds like, as I'm saying it, like a Homer Simpson episode, an episode of The Simpsons. Let me take another quick drink of water, and I'll continue. Isn't it funny, by the way, how easily suggestible we are? You put an idea just out there, and that's how easily the seed plants in your mind, and you act on it. It's tied up with hypnotism as well. I must do another thing on hypnotism. I meant to, as the whole VidCon 2019 ceremony was starting, because it ties into hypnotism so well, how they manipulate us and exactly what they were doing. I'll take a quick pause and say, in my story, and say, Miss Maskless says it's 2022 and my employer doesn't offer us water. At least you know where you stand then with them, right? And know, right, that's how little they care about you, right? And I know you know, right? You're no fool. I know that. I know you know. But lest we need reminding, but I kind of find that I'm, right, and I'll say this jokingly, right? I'm so kind-hearted, right? But I'm not anymore, because oh boy, am I angry. But I have this childhood naivety in me that I haven't managed to quite get rid of yet, where I keep falling back on thinking, oh, well, maybe it's that they just don't know how nasty they're being. No, they know, they're fully aware of it, and they love it. They are sadists who delight in micromanaging every little inconvenience and every little amount of uncomfortableness. They love making everything as uncomfortable for you as possible, every aspect of it. Anyway, back to the story. So, as I say, ebullient or buoyed with enthusiasm from having, I don't know, met far less resistance than I had been expecting, right? This dour or dour, however you say it, ashen-faced, no, they weren't ashen-faced, but very serious-looking people. But of course, look, as I got to know the higher-up corporate types, the more refined they look, the more in private, vulgar their tastes are. But I thought these were fine, upstanding people, and I thought maybe that they were so important that I didn't want to be wasting their time. And so I thought, look, I might as well skip over this. Obviously, I'll just send you an email then when I get back to my desk tomorrow or whatever with the rest of our, I shudder to call them, or embarrassed to call them, demands now, but our requests, let's say, and they must be just oversights on your behalf. And it's just because, you're the senior management team and head office, and you can't possibly be expected to be aware of conditions at every outpost that you have all around the world, and what the employees are suffering under, like not having water. Oh God, I feel like that I'm complaining over trivial nonsense here. But it's not trivial nonsense if these are absolutely bottom tier. Let's use Maslow's hierarchy of needs, bottom tier and below of the lowest echelon or layer of the pyramid on what you need. So I just saw May's Mind there saying, don't forget to like the stream. And I thought, oh, is that something I have to do? Oh, no, something you have to do, or can if you want. Anyway, didn't want to waste their time. So I said, I'll send you an email with all these other trivialities. Let's not concern ourselves with it. Sure, we're all friends here. Didn't realize that. Maybe I said to them, oh God, I thought this was going to be a lot more difficult. I'm delighted to see how amenable you are, how open to reason you are, open to hearing what we have to say. And I was still naive at that time to think like, it was just this big layer of fat, the middle layer of layers of management, who were unfortunately creating an insulation between all the amazing workers like me and my colleagues and upper management who couldn't possibly have the time or the eyes to be able to see what was happening everywhere. They were relying on the layers of management, but they weren't feeding back all this important information to them about whether their employees were happy or comfortable or well paid. Haha, little did I know, dot, 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 etc. Or if only I knew. Anyway, May's Mind. Anyway, May's Mind there says I didn't know about the stream. Well, just as well because I scheduled it through StreamYard, and I think it sent out a notification, and I figured a half an hour was good enough time. I see a lot of other people doing that, and then I added myself to the stream at the time that it started, but I forgot to click go live, so I was talking to myself for 10 minutes. So maybe there was some people who were sticking around going, just silence. It might have been good, but I'll never know, and they bowed out. But anyway, I'm glad to have whoever's listening now. May's Mind says I do some time travel on the weekends. All right. don't let me go down that. I love the idea of time travel. And maybe it's in relation to Lily Gazoo, who says, I Googled howdy goes back to 1600s England. All right. How do ye do? That makes total sense. Howdy doody. Howdy. And I thought it was Texan. Well, I think, it's probably not going to be a surprise to anyone to know that lots of the English settlers would have gone over to the southern states and brought a lot of the language and culture with them. Anyway, can I finish this story? It's not that exciting, I think, and I think you might all know where it's going. But it's instructive. It's illustrative of something. So I jumped ahead and I shot my shot and I said, yeah, well, look, getting down to brass tacks anyway. Now that we're all friends and we all understand each other, and I think we all know why we're here, right? And I made the fatal mistake. Maybe it's not fatal exactly, but it's the kind of thing that I would advise anybody to avoid saying when you're doing public speaking, unless you're very, very sure of the crowd. And I think you can never be sure unless you're all part of a club, a secret club where it's been blood in, or you've got something on everyone. But I made the mistake of saying, well, I think I speak, might have even given a sort of little sardonic roll of my eyes. I think I speak for us all when I say, look, we all feel that we're being significantly underpaid here. Not just that we feel that way, but we've looked at, other people in comparative jobs and in similar corporations. And I think I speak for us all when I say that we are indeed, we don't just think it, we know that we're being underpaid. And I figured because I said we had no water, no free drinking water, they didn't need to be told what the solution was, right? Provide some free water. So that when I would say we feel that we're all underpaid, I shouldn't need to say, and therefore, ergo, the solution is pay us more. I thought that was obvious, so maybe I left it hanging in the air. And I sort of counted the silence, maybe after I'd already heard 3 seconds of silence. And then I counted another 3. And of course, time dilates, just like that Hitchcock movie, I think it's Vertigo, where the camera on the dolly is pushed backwards, but the camera zooms in. So at the same time as it felt like my person or my personality or whoever I was being pulled backwards out of my avatar, being my corporeal body, my physical body, and my avatar in the real world, right? That stayed there staring at this panel of people. They were staring into my soul as it was being pulled out through the back of my head or the back of my chest. And I realized that I heard deathly silence from the 100 or so people behind me as well. Not a pin could be heard if it had been dropped. And I said, uh-oh, I think it's going to be a bad move if I look around now, but I'm going to do it anyway because it sounds like there's nobody in the room anymore. It's just me and this panel, but that can't be because I would have heard them leaving. So I turned around And I was expecting to sort of see everybody's faces so that I could kind of go, oh, you are there. I thought you'd all left for a minute. Why aren't you all kind of going, yeah, you know? Why aren't you all making a bit of a hubbub, a bit of a noise, as if to go, here, here, like they do in the House of Lords or the House of Commons in Canada and in the English House of Commons and anywhere else as a parliament. But particularly I think of the English House of Commons where they're all like "Hoo, hoo," and they're like a bunch of unruly schoolboys, but in the upper crust schools, of course, where they're used to making noises like this for their particular team when they're doing the debating practice. And the Speaker of the House has to go, now, gentlemen and ladies, order, order. I was expecting to hear a bit of noise. I wasn't necessarily expecting to hear them being raucous. I wanted something between them being, quiet and yet, too reserved to say nothing, and dignified but enthusiastic. A round of applause, maybe. Although I didn't, in my mind's eye, I didn't want to imagine me as being the hero, where and everyone stood up and clapped. I didn't dare think that, but I did want like some support, some backup, an endorsement of what I just said, audibly, and yet silence. And when I turned around, I was expecting to then find out what was the problem here. Why was I hearing nothing? And the way you can read somebody's faces then to find out what's wrong. Well, I couldn't do that, and the reason that I couldn't do that was because everybody, at least in the first few rows, and you know, most everyone that I recognized as being my close colleagues and friends, a lot of people you work with for a few years, you consider, and I hung around with a lot of these people, right, on the weekends. We did things together, not just drinking and stuff. We engaged in our hobbies. I used to be into cars, and we'd fix each other's cars and that kind of thing. So I looked around, and they were all looking down at their shoes, down at the carpet. And I said, I'll try and just not even use their names, or maybe I will by accident, but I was like, Brian, Paul, Gary, 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 why won't you look at me? You know? And the more I said his name, the more resolutely he stared at the tops of his shoes, refused to look up at me. And the penny dropped, I looked, around the room towards more the back of the room. Excuse me, because I'm feeling my throat getting dry now, and it is some of it is even more than 20 years ago now, reliving the same emotions where there's a physiological effect on you. Couldn't take a drink of water now. Yeah, but there's a physiological effect where you feel your throat closing in and getting drier. Because if you are a genuine human being, unless you're used to these kind of situations, you have genuine, well, I'll keep using the word physiological, but there's everyone has a brain and an endocrine system, and there's a lot of control of your body. Most of it is just done without thinking of it, and it's automatic, and you can't help it. And I think I must have started to feel like the ground was spinning. As I already said, like it felt like something, the wind or my soul, was being pulled out from behind me. So I realized what had happened. I realized that all of my friends had bottled it, my friends and colleagues. And I kind of thought to myself, I was going down in my mind all these avenues of but why that doesn't make any sense. Why are they going against their own best interests as well as mine? I'm doing this for them. They didn't need to say anything. They didn't even need to say, yes, we agree. They just needed to sort of go, yeah, here. Yeah, yeah, what he said. That's all they needed to say. A bit of whatever crowd noises would have been, and they wouldn't have been singled out. But we're just like the animal kingdom, like zebras. or whatever. They all scarper. Now, maybe occasionally there might be a nature documentary when one of them goes back to try and save him, but generally the crowd scarpers. And I don't know what they saw when they looked at these people, or whether immediately, the moment that we all filed in and they sat down and they locked eyes with one or two of these people who were sitting behind this impressive and intimidating, foreboding mahogany desk, whether they kind of went, uh-oh, this has been a mistake, and they had decided already to bottle it. But what I've discovered since is that this was not something particular to my colleagues at that time. It was nothing particular with these people, that time, or this place. This is humanity. That was a large enough subset, and I should have formed the understanding from the sort of smaller group to the larger group. I should have extrapolated from the individual group to the larger group. And I was, of course, tempted to do that, but I thought, look, no, always err on the side of caution. And I keep giving people the benefit of the doubt. I have kept giving individuals and humanity the benefit of the doubt, where it was not deserved. And I don't mean to blackpill anybody, but I would advise anybody else, if the world continues spinning, and I think that that's the most likely scenario. Society will just keep going in whatever way that it is. And when people get born into it, that's their normal, and they never knew any different. So all they'll see is, after a while, if they're conscious in whatever way that you and I are, or have retained from birth, that I would say they're just going to think, well, things weren't. They'll think things weren't as good as they were when I was born. But everything's relative in that sense, from whatever point in the slide. And people keep thinking that, and I kept thinking as well, in any corporation, they keep outdoing themselves. You keep thinking, oh, well, now things can't get any worse. They always can. That's one rule that seems to be universal and infallible. Again, it's a very dangerous thing to think, let alone loudly announce. Well, at least things can't get any worse from here, lads. They absolutely can. And the moment you say it, they always do. So Maysmine says it there, which is something which I've more or less said. People will, or before he came along, and again, great minds think alike. But it's a nice way, or it's a self-flattering, but a joking way of saying we have corroboration there. Two independent minds observe the same thing and describe the same thing. So we're just vessels for the same truth. We don't own the truth. He and I aren't right. It's that we're saying something that is correct, and observably so, and can be corroborated. Most people will go along with whatever. They are the NPCs, the non-player characters, sometimes called organic portals, that do what they are told, or do what they perceive to be the thing to do. They pick up on it like radio waves, like Matt from Quantum of Conscience sort of has his analogy goes. They take the download. But anyway, I think that sort of puts a spiritual, mythological, or no, supernatural aspect to it that isn't necessary. You could look at it through the psychological lens, and basically most people are treacherous cowards. That's the way they are. Are they born that way? I think probably, yeah. Is there some conditioning that could happen in the formative years that would make them, or condition them to act in a more honorable way? Yeah, but it wouldn't necessarily mean that they're honorable, and it wouldn't necessarily mean that you couldn't trust them when the chips were really down, not to stab you in the back. So that's what most people will do. Very, very black pill. In other words, it's a realization that is extremely uncomfortable to know, and we'd rather not know it, but that seems to be the case. So the seconds were going by like hours, and I was feeling very unsteady on my feet, and I felt like fainting. I guess I must have felt like fainting because everything was spinning. The room was spinning. And I thought to myself, all right, whatever I thought was going to happen here today isn't happening. And I can try and sort of recriminate over it and go back through all the whys and wherefores of what didn't happen and why later. I don't have the luxury of time to do that now. So I'll just have to turn back around. I felt like maybe I was ignoring, or the eyes of the people on this panel were staring at the back of my head. So I said, what am I going to say to them now? And I just decided I'm going to turn around to them, and they're obviously clever people. They wouldn't be in their roles or in their positions in the corporation and in life, and they wouldn't have the stature or status as they do without being clever. Well, maybe that's not necessarily so, but anyway, you have to have a certain amount of cunning anyway. And social nous, in other words, being able to read people. Unless it's a rare example of somebody being such a problem and such an idiot that they kept being promoted way above their pay scale or way above their capabilities. So I just turned around and I said, well, gentlemen, and I think there might have been a lady there as well. So maybe I said, well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry to have wasted your time. I think we both know we can leave it at that. And that there's obviously not going to be any more talk about this ever again. Congratulations. And I just walked out. I walked past my friends. I walked into my car, and I smoked at the time, and I was really, as they often say, gutting for a cigarette. So I probably went out to my car, and maybe if you've asthma, maybe it's like the same thing. I don't have it, but I imagine it's like gasping to have a breath of this inhaler. Although of course, obviously, burning down a cigarette real quick is not good for you. But anyway, doesn't matter. Just describing to you the way. Anyway, even if you don't smoke and you don't have asthma, I'm sure any human being can understand having the air pushed out of you in such a way that you want to leave the room and you change your environment and get out of there and breathe in some fresh air and kind of go like as if you've been drowning underwater, and you get to the surface. And that's I'll say it one last time, hopefully, physiological reaction to the whole thing. But I didn't learn my lesson, and maybe I still haven't fully. I'm a slow learner in that way. But I've had other lessons, and maybe in other live streams or in other videos, I'll recount other stories. And I was reticent to tell these stories because I didn't want it to be like, oh, woe is me. Let me complain about this thing. Let me tell you about this thing that once happened to me and what nasty individuals all those other people were, but not me. Of course, I'm a good person, blah, 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 right? I didn't want to be self-serving like that. But I think it's illustrative of something. I think you and I all know, but we're aware of this kind of thing about humanity. But it's helpful to hear from somebody else's perspective nonetheless, to be reminded, not just be told because you know already that you're not alone, but to be reminded that you're not alone. And because I know that helps me. There's a sort of an addendum to this story, and I think it's worth telling as well, to really show you the treachery, right? The story of Peter and the story of Judas, how people will betray you for 30 pieces of silver, but they don't even need 30 pieces of silver. So there's the carrot and the stick, right? I think with Peter, the threat was whatever, priestly or Roman guards or whoever they were, right? Let's not single out any particular group, right? Whoever the ruling authorities were at the time, they have, enforcement police or military or whatever that come around looking for people who are too much of a problem, running their mouths or have caused problems by radicalizing individuals around the community or whatever it might be, or making them excited, or as they say, creating public disharmony, right? They'll always accuse us of doing that, not them. And scandalizing people with hate speech, and there's all these laws have been on the books since before I was born as well, about causing public offense. Such a vague thing, and you can just apply it to anybody. Oh, he caused public offense. We have to send out our foot soldiers now to look for him. And then so Peter saying like, oh no, I wouldn't be one of those anti-dentites. Oh, I'm not in that basket of deplorables. I never even heard of them, right? Mr. Deplorable, I never knew him. I might have heard of him vaguely. I wouldn't know where he is, right? That's Peter. Deny, deny, deny till the cock crows thrice. And then, so what good is it then if later on he goes, oh, let me climb up on this cross then and hang myself upside down? Too little, too late, right? Go off with yourself now is what I'd be saying. Right? No point in like crucifying yourself now. What good does it do? It's all over now, Not that I'm comparing myself to Jesus, but look, you can see the parallels, right? And not with me, but I may be explaining the story to you in a slightly different way than you might have thought of. That's all. And then Judas, of course, all the other. There's no shortage of them. either. All the other people that are like, well, $30, you say? Sold. No problemo. um, yeah, look, I see the comments coming up there and as well, and I'll address those, and I'll get back to the addendum sort of in the following days and weeks within the corporation. So, yeah, as Matt there says, yeah, they'll accuse you of inciting violence uh, by any of the words, like anything that I've said now, right? This story. I haven't mentioned anyone, right? I haven't made reference. Well, I might have made reference, but I haven't explicitly named any group. I haven't told anybody to go get anybody. I'm just saying how I feel. I feel mightily aggrieved, and I feel like that if there's an afterlife, I used to wonder what one would do with an infinity, sitting in heaven. Everyone just talking about stuff, playing harps, being real good boys. Sounds pretty boring. Or even if it's like something that's super good fun, eventually you got bored of it. You know, I can't even imagine doing something for 100 years, let alone infinity. But what I can start to imagine is working in hell. Oh, it would be a pleasure to get up every day. I am off. No, I was going to say I'm off to see the wizard. No, I'm off. I'd be hopping and skipping and jumping, right, to go to work. I'd be following the red terracotta brick road, right? Hopefully that would lead me to hell, where I kind of go, "Morning, everyone! It's a beautiful day," to start wreaking my revenge on who have we got here now? Patient number 1,273 million trillion, right? Ah, good. Did you not speak up when it was your time? Oh no, you know that's all right. Did you betray me? Um did you act like a turncoat? Did you refuse to say what you had said outdoors, outside when you and I were talking, but we went inside there and you wouldn't even look at me in the face? You know, so maybe I could spend an infinity. What's the word for it? I don't want to say retribution again. Maybe that's too strong. Retribution's too strong a word. Or exacting revenge. It's people say it's a wrong thing, and look, I'll say that that's a bad place of mind to be in, right? Because it absolutely can consume you, especially when you don't have the ability to do anything to anybody. And any individual or group, I wouldn't be able to. And maybe I'll leave it there, right? It's a bad place to go down. But you do start eating yourself up if you're stewing on your own bile, put it that way. So there's no point in fantasizing nor talking about all the things you might do if only you had a chance. But there is a group of people who seem to have that particular animosity uh, towards us and maybe everyone. And you know that they don't feel any compunction about it. But and they will accuse us, of course, of all the things that they are planning on doing and doing. So that's what Matt there says about inciting. Just by what I'm sure is on the uh, legal books of England and Britain and many other countries anyway, of disturbing the peace, creating public disharmony, that kind of thing. So Macon Sheedy says that he has been told that he has a problem with authority and he was raised to know who the authority is. Now, I wasn't raised to know who the authority is. I was sent out into the world innocent, even though I asked questions, but I'll leave that for a little bit. I wasn't given satisfactory answers, and I don't believe I was given information that they knew, that my parents knew. They should have told me. But look, I'm going to say, I think my mother's attitude to it was, look, as long as I be a good person and don't lie or steal or cheat, then I'll sort of be untouchable. And as long as I choose my friends very wisely. And she told me, more or less choose your friends wisely. But I wouldn't listen. I thought all my friends were brilliant. So if I had to listen to that, but look, I still would have much rather if she would have told me that there's a specific type of person to be careful of, and that she probably did tell me, look, most people act nice, pretend to be nice, and I always thought, like, but that doesn't make sense. Why would they pretend to be nice to you? What do I have that they'd want? Well, I don't know. People enjoy lulling you into thinking that they're good people, but they're always planning to either scarper or stab you in the back or give you up whenever the time is right, whenever they see an opportunity. And Macon Shooty says, then I realized it wasn't me, it was others that just accepted it. Well, look, I think all of us have one thing in common here, and that is that we all have a problem with authority and have done from the moment that we first remember. That we were always rubbing up against authority, standing up against it, questioning it from the time that, well, certainly that I was in school anyway. And I don't think that that was something that was inculcated in me by my parents. I think that was something that was nascent. I think that was something that, if it was part of my personality or part of the core of my personality, I think I was born with that obstinate type of attitude. And it has never left me, and I'm very grateful for it. And it seems to be a characteristic that does run, unfortunately for my father, in my mother's side of the family, and that's something that he never liked. Oh boy. But I don't need to go into that now. Just that I'm thinking that my grandmother was, and I've mentioned it before actually in another video of mine, my grandmother was a disagreeable sort of a person in that sense, you know. And she had pictures. She had these creepy pictures or paintings hanging on her wall of these grotesque men. I think they were supposed to signify English lords, like judges, you know, wearing their gowns and wigs, and like Bank of England people. Right, that's what I thought they were at the time, and they were creepy, and they creeped me out, and I hated going to her house because of that reason. Right? If only she had mentioned something to me. Inciting panic as well, creating panic amongst the populace, needless panic in the population, even if it was true. And that's the thing, but you know, they might go, well, it's irrelevant if it's true. You're only going to panic people, and that's their justification for a load of things. You can't tell people anything, and they're kind of right, aren't they? They would stampede, and not in a good way. So they prefer to carefully manage the population. Don't spook the cattle, you know. All right. So before I get back to the addendum, and I might as well finish it on that, and I'll tell you what, I'll cut it off at. Oh God, I think I'm gone beyond 2 hours now. I won't go beyond 2.5 hours. Right? Let's see if I can keep to that promise. Making Shooties. No, he said that. May's Mind said, I can white pill it for y'all. If most are NPCs, let's say 98%, then we are fighting with less than 1% that control the world. Yeah. But unfortunately, they are in control by proxy of that other, let's say 98%. And they get those people to, at the very least, drag us down. And we have, it's a bit like, okay, I'm going to say this, right? I don't know which Superman it was, whether it was Superman 1 or Superman 2. I don't think it was Superman 3. But it's those three people who wear the black suits, and they're from Zod. And one of them might be called Zod, kneel before Zod. And they're all fighting with Superman. And because they're all apparently equally powered as Superman, three of them against him, Superman is starting to lose. And he might be able to fight against them, and he's fighting against them. I'm pretty sure it is in the streets of New York. Although maybe they didn't say it explicitly. But I remember there was a Marlboro van. I don't think you'd see it these days, just delivering Marlboro cigarettes to whatever shops. And I seem to remember that they ripped the side off this. Obviously, it was advertising to impressionable youth like us at the time. And maybe he was able to catch that before they threw that truck at somebody, because there was a load of crowd. There was, massive amount of crowd who would come out onto the streets to see what was going on, because they were having a big fight, throwing lots of heavy machinery at each other or crashing into buildings. And maybe they picked up another car, and he wasn't able to catch it this time, and it killed some people. Or maybe he at the last moment saved it from crushing some people. And maybe it was the woman who said, why does he care about all of these little creatures? Because they're so insignificant and beneath them. They are gods after all. And we are all just insignificant ant creatures, less than ants. because we don't even work collectively in our own interests. So I just read something there by Matt. The problem, and I kind of just I keep reading and forgetting to keep talking, but because I don't want there to be dead air. But let's say the 98%. You see, we keep feeling compassion for everybody else, despite the fact that I'm talking about how much I resent their treachery. I haven't. If I was given the red button, I'd like to think that I would say, right, the only way to get rid of all this scourge of evil is to press the red button and explode it all. And if there is such a thing as in the afterlife, everyone goes through the meet and greet and how do you do, and we give everyone the opportunity to destroy the world. Would you like to? And I guess most people would say, no, I'm not even there anymore. It doesn't concern me. I don't care. As long as it doesn't affect me, I don't care. Right? I'd have to sit down and think about it and say, would I be right to destroy the world? Is that what the test is? That it's better to get rid of all the suffering, even if you get rid of one or two people with the spark of light. And I think I'd have to say to myself, okay, no, it's not for me to destroy the spark of light, the light behind the eyes. Can't extinguish that. Well, there's still hope. It's not the despair that kills you, it's the hope. You know? So look, I was trying to think there, did I finish the Superman analogy? Not calling myself Superman either, right? I hope you understand that. So look, as aggrieved as I am, as disappointed as I am, I think on mature reflection, if I was given the opportunity to destroy the earth and everyone in it, just to get rid of the evil that's in it, I think I'm hanging on by a thread and saying, okay, fine, I wouldn't. It's just an interesting thought experiment. But I don't think that the sheep are innocent. I don't hold them innocent. It would be more about the 1 or 2% that do have the light behind their eyes, and it's not fair while they're still here fighting the battle. Because while they're still on the playing field, it still could be turned around, or the chess game, or whatever you want to say. The opponent could make a mistake and kind of go, "All right, sorry about that, old matey, but check matey." So a bull, I wouldn't liken myself. Well, you can, but I wouldn't liken myself to a bull. But maybe I've got the heart of a lion, even if I don't quite have the body of a bull. But look, I'm not here to flatter myself. Do you know what I mean? I just want to be careful of that. But I have always had a problem with authority because I always think it's illegitimate, and I at least want them to explain to me why it is that whatever they're saying is so correct that I must accept it without question. Right? If somebody wants me to do something or believe something they're saying, then explain to me your rationale. And if they, as they always do, get angry when I kind of go, but why? And they go, just shut up and do it, or shut up and believe. That washed for a while when it was my parents and people my parents told me, they told me, trust and obey most adults. Because they've been through it all, they know better. You don't know enough about life. And they have experience that you haven't got yet. So just trust us. We don't have time to explain everything to you. And I guess maybe it's important to sort of say, like, they gave me the story of, look, your father may have been careless, but even though he shouldn't, he may have stored maybe some petrol or some poison in a bottle that's not labeled on a shelf in the garage. And if you would ever climb up on a ladder and, even though we've tried to put it out of harm's way, even if he would forget, he would, leave a ladder out or leave it on the ground or whatever, and it looked like a bottle of lemonade and you drank it, right? If we discovered you as you were being poisoned, or if you came in and your throat was burning and we asked you, hey, did you drink out of that bottle? Well, if you were conditioned or thought that, your reflex action or your default action should be to lie to us, then the consequences could be much more severe. Whereas if you were, conditioned, or if you got into the habit of just always telling the truth and doing what adults told you, because there isn't time to explain, just tell the truth and the adults might need to know quicker, right? We don't have time to be coaxing you and persuading you to do the right thing. So that's unfortunately the lesson that they really instilled in me, which they should have counterbalanced with, yeah, but at the same time, there's a lot of people out there with huge egos, even though I mightn't have understood the word ego, but who have, high opinions of themselves, who don't care about what the truth is. They only find enjoyment about telling other people what to do and seeing them obey them. And unfortunately, why a lot of people, and maybe that's another topic for a live stream, go into education is because generally the people are less knowledgeable, but often younger and more naive than they are, and are put into a paradigm, an environment where the social expectation is that they, no matter what age they are, that they will acquiesce their will to the person at the top of the class telling them what to do, or relinquish their will, or subjugate their will, I should say. Do you know what I should have been doing? I should have been putting the comments, but I'm new to the StreamYard. I should have been putting the comments up on screen. Right, so I'll start doing that now anyway, right? So there's Matt. I've gone to jail for speaking my mind. Apparently bicycle cops have a lot to prove. Yeah, that's another thing. I thought that if you would just stand up to authority, they would kind of go, yeah, well, fair enough. You got me there. That is true. But they don't. And it used to be that some police might have. They might have said, yeah, fair enough. I was speeding as well, or whatever. Or it's true that I'm a biker as well, and maybe I don't always, if you know what I mean, do everything that's totally legal. But there's a time and a place. You might say, look, you know as well as I, there's a time and the place to do things like that. So I'll use my discretion. And as long as it seems to me like I'm getting a read back from your face or through your eyes that you know that it was out of order, but we both are known to each other, right? We're both from the same locality. We're both part of the same community. That if I see you again, and if you sort of insult me by pretending that we're seeing eye to eye now, but then I see you a week later doing the same thing, then you've disrespected me and you know it. And then there'll be sanctions, like hopefully not jail for the second offense, but whatever, you know what I mean? So look, I will try and wrap it up and get it under 2.5 hours, because I think any more than that would be exorbitant. Maze Mind, excuse me, says, just stopping by to show y'all some support. It's time to eat. Stay positive, everyone. And listen, you've been very supportive, Maze Mind. He often comments on my videos, and he might be the only one sometimes. And I remember one of his comments, he said, listen, I just wanted to pop in to sort of say, I really appreciated your last video, and don't lose hope and keep going, and it's much appreciated. So that comment did have the required effect, or expected effect. I did decide, look, got to keep going. Say whatever, do whatever, even if it's just a small contribution to the sum total of all of us saying, we know that none of this is right, and we are obstinate enough in a good way to say, we don't accept this paradigm you're trying to shove down our throats, and we won't accept it, and we'll never accept it, and we'd rather die. And it's looking like maybe some of us are going to have to than ever accept it. And Abraxa said, they don't have authority. This is why, well, they assume it. They assume it. And when people acquiesce and when people do what they say, then they kind of go, oh, this is working. And they keep pushing their luck. This is why they get upset when questioned about it. Yeah, that's it. They know they're on shaky ground. Law is consent, and their method is to manufacture consent. Well, that was, I don't know if it was one of his titles of books, but it was a description of how they manufacture consent. Noam Chomsky. But I've talked about him in one of my most recent videos on Odyssey, so I'll leave it at that. By any means necessary to hold power over your mind, yeah. So I think I'm caught up with the comments there, and I'll start trying to finish it off here, and I'll say that the end of that story was that one of the fellows, I'll say his name was Gary, right? Maybe his name was Gary, I don't know. He thought that he was doing the right thing by coming over to me and some of my colleagues. We were in the canteen in work, and we were eating our lunch, and I'm sure I don't maybe have to set up every little detail of it, but it's important to paint the picture that, look, people at different levels, social strata in the corporation, it's the same. It's totally analogous to society as well. We don't like to think it, but there are classes of people who group together and they naturally recognize each other. And it's just the same, I suppose, in all the movies about school, or all the movies that are set in American schools in particular. That there's different tables where different classes of society within school even sit beside each other, the nerds and the jocks and whatever, I'm thinking particularly of those John Hughes movies from the 80s. I don't need to go down that tangent, but I am trying to think of the name of that movie. Not that it particularly matters. You know what I'm talking about. And so that's what happened in this workplace. And there was a gang of us, we'd all try and arrange to go at lunch at the same time, and had done for the last year or two. And so this fellow Gary, he isn't sitting with us. And by the way, I was always welcoming to anybody, and I didn't want to see anybody sitting on their own, or anybody walk past us, because a lot of times they'd walk in the canteen, not see you, because they'd be looking into the distance and not see you sitting near the door, and they would maybe you'd see them go up to the sort of cafeteria with their tray and go down the rails, and now it wasn't a nice place at all. You had to pay for it as well, and you'd see them turn around, and they'd only be standing there for too long, going red faced, trying to see if they recognize someone they can sit with. So I put up my hand and said, "Oh, we're down here, right?" And he saw me, but he ignored me. He pretended he didn't see me, and then he realized that he knew that I knew that he was pretending not to see me. So we came down to the table, and he decided it was maybe he was making the best of a bad opportunity to take the opportunity to cut ties with me and everybody else. He had been given word that he was going to be given a promotion, and that was, he felt, going to put him into managerial class, and it wouldn't be right to be seen eating with us anymore. And he said, I'm sorry guys, but I'm not going to be able to sit with you anymore. And I think maybe he figured that I had heard already on the grapevine that he was getting a promotion to being a team leader, or maybe it was only assistant team leader, probably was assistant team leader, or assistant to the team leader, whatever. And off he went, turned and walked off, and I never spoke to him again, and he never spoke to me. He might have spoken to one or two other people, but I mean, I wouldn't forget that, absolutely not. And I don't think I ever did. It kind of broke my heart, but not for the first time and not completely. And I haven't fully learned the lesson either of to not trust people, because I keep thinking, well, what if I don't leave or allow a small portion of my heart or mind or soul or whatever it might be to extend some of the milk of human kindness, or some of the credit um, that you might extend to somebody in the 1 or 2% that might be still left, and you might miss a friend for being so guarded against all these foes that are out there. And like Neo in the Matrix gets explained to him by Morpheus, he says, listen, all these other people you see walking by you, they're not sort of unconscious. They could turn and be dangerous at any point. And again, I'm not comparing myself to Neo, but again, I might be explaining to you or putting to you in a certain way um, a way of understanding the metaphors that have been presented to us, or even just echoing and reverberating the same kind of insight that you have already clicked upon in your life. And it just helps to know that somebody else has been traveling the same paths and forming the same conclusions. Right. So I'll try and wrap it up. And what am I getting to now? Yeah, it's nearly, according to this clock, but I think it started. I think I missed 10 minutes. I'm coming up in 2.5 hours. What do I want to do now? I want to talk about, just to round it up, I never got to talk about some other story. I was going to tell you another story, right, about lying liars. So we'll do part 2 another time, maybe next Saturday. And maybe I'll leave. I had a couple of pictures that I was going to show you. So instead of that, I'll finish off what I was going to do and give myself a quick plug, right? So what I'm doing is I typed there to get towards something there. I want to show you this word and just explore it for a little bit, because something that I said earlier, I keep falling back on is thinking, oh, maybe they're not so bad. Maybe they don't know that they're doing it. Maybe they're not consciously being malevolent. Maybe it's just part of their subconscious, which is not really part of their fault, because maybe it's part of their genetics or part of their culture, part of their upbringing, part of their religion, ethnocentrism, whatever it might be. And then, look, the human animal, I think, floats between a conscious awareness of his or her actions and subconscious drives and desires that are always flowing under the surface. That's the psychological lens to look at it. And that's a nebulous enough way to put it, right? But the fact that when you discover the fact that certain words, and what I must do now is share my screen. And I'm just trying to find, it's not an app, it's a tab, StreamYard, to say share my screen, right? So share my screen, and what can I do? Application. Yeah. Okay. So, right, what you definitely don't want is that mirrors within mirrors. So I'm going to click off real quick and go to shibboleth, right? So this was the word that I hadn't heard before Paul Joseph Watson mentioned it in his video there that I showed you at the beginning. So it's a mid 17th century from Hebrew. Okay. Don't all raise your hands at once, and don't type anything into the comments just now. But quelle surprise, quelle surprise, which is, I mean, when you say it in French, it's a nice way of saying, imagine my shock, as Paul Joseph Watson would say. I think that's his saying that he often uses, or catchphrase. So it's funny, isn't it, that apparently it was, if you see this graph of alleged, right? Apparently, it scans through books. Allegedly, it was used quite a lot at the turn of the 19th century. Declined, went up a little bit in the 60s, down a bit, and has been rising, it seems, from the dawn of this new millennium, and is gradually rising. What will we see after 2019? Will we see it's going up a lot in 2022 and 2023? If, and I don't know, it's a big if for me, if more and more people admit that they are aware that there is a certain all-pervasive commonality in all of the scandals, in all of the aspects of the decline of our society, and not just decline of our society, but impending tyranny, the ever-encroaching tyranny. That there's also a common denominator that is impossible not to notice. You would have to be deliberately blind or born without whatever gift of sight we were born with, nascent or otherwise. So if you can see my screen now, and I'll quickly check back on StreamYard just to see if there's anybody that is saying they can or they can't. Bianca Zampi, thanks. I'm very honored to see you there. In case I didn't mention your name earlier, I'll say it now explicitly. You have inspired me or encouraged me because of what you're doing all the time, and you make it seem so easy. And you have the sort of, how would I say, a casual air of what a young Adam Carolla used to have, speaking into the microphone, and yet being more based, I think, than he ever was. And unfortunately, I think he's gotten a bit lately. Adam Carolla has decided to protect his sort of career and revenue stream and legacy and whatever else. But anyway, nice to see Bianca Zombie there. And if anyone's not aware of him, he is almost so good he might put you off deciding to make your own videos and live streams, right? But he's great because he reminds you you're not alone, and you've traveled the same neural pathways informing your thoughts and arriving at certain inevitable conclusions, as troubling and as controversial and non-politically correct as they are. All right, so if you can see my screen, here's a new word for the lexicon, as well as some Mudic types, TTs, as Amazing Grace. I think it's more Amazingly Graceful. The girl with the red hair from Georgia taught me yesterday, TTs, to refer to them. And Kelsey Breeze, as I say, that shibboleth, what does it mean? And the biblical meaning is ear of grain. Okay. But what is a shibboleth? Shibboleths can be used to highlight your social status. And they are words that they use to signal to each other, oh, you're in the gang, I'm in the gang. So they can do it across Zoom meetings where they are not able to be in the same room and shake hands, or if, like, say, they're at a VidCon 19 video convention and you're not allowed to shake hands because, I don't know, you might be passing SD cards to each other, or the germs of anything else, the germinations of something else. So it might indicate that you're in a certain class. You're the weekend at the Hamptons type, or you're in the know about certain things, and that you're in a certain club if you string together a few words that are esoteric enough or have that religiosity to them, but it's a sort of a Babylonian religion that you might be invoking with your words or conjuring up. There might be some kind of magical magi aspect to it. And I remember I think I mentioned the word magi, and somebody went, "Oh, you can't be saying that," right? And somebody else went, "Why? Why not? What's anti-dentite about that?" So I thought basically that was interesting. And look, I think I'll wrap it up and leave it at that because, as I say, I don't want to be extravagant here. I've gone beyond, I think, or I'm getting around 2.5 hours, and that's long enough. I'll just plug my channel. I'm called Extrapolations. No, I'm called Eternal Extrapolations on YouTube, as I am on Odyssey. And I've only started to do video uploads to Odyssey that are exclusive to Odyssey. And if I can show them here or there. So you can see just a quick nod and a glance to them there. Uh-oh, shut it down. All right. And there's Making Shooties video, which I'm just hosting because I thought it was worthy of not disappearing down the memory hole. However, if you'd ever like me to remove it from there, I'm not trying to say it's my work. And if you'd ever think that it's causing him problems, I'll remove it as well. So let me know. It might be better that I do because I think he might have uploaded it elsewhere. So I'll leave it at that. But there's some more of my other videos there, and there's some of my ones that I sort of said, oh, I better cross pollinate those in case I ever get. And look, if I'm going to continue to speak the truth, I will be deplatformed or whatever. I was going to use another word there. And then last thing, will this take me there if I click it? I don't think. Oh, if I click it here, right, written extrapolations. If you click there, I'm not sure if you can do that from the About tab. I think you can in the About tab if you're on mobile, or click there if you're on regular computer. So you can get to my blog there. I got very despondent and demoralized a while ago. And although I keep writing drafts of things, I haven't published anything because I just kind of thought, oh, what's the point? Who cares? What's going to happen is going to happen. But I would like if, when the moment, individually and collectively, presents itself, in other words, when the moment cries out for it, I would like if one's nobility of soul would come rushing to the fore and tell your more cerebral and pragmatic aspects of your conscious mind what the right thing to do is. You know what it is already, but whatever is appropriate in that particular moment, that nobility of soul will make itself present in your focus of mind. And that's not a call for anything in particular. Just know what the right thing to do and always stick to it. Don't be like Judas backstabbing people, and don't be like Peter saying, "Oh, I never knew him. I'd never even heard of him. Who are you talking about? I don't know." To make the biblical reference there, although I don't want to be a Bible thumper, and I never have been. But you can read some of my other thoughts and musings and essays and whatever there. There's a lot more there. The menu doesn't. I'm not sure how to scroll the menu. I mean, maybe I should redesign it. But if you click latest extrapolations, anyway, you get a summary there of lots of different ones, and if you like what the beginning of it sounds like, you can go in and read it. So that's one way of getting there to that blog, or you can just type in extrapolations.blog The blog being the suffix like .com, but it's .blog, extrapolations.blog, and you'll get there. But as I say, my Odyssey is starting to get a bit more hot, you know. So get it while it's going. I don't know how Odyssey are going to continue to feel about everything, so I might see if I can open a Rumble, but haven't quite done that yet. And it's best not to put all your eggs in the one basket. I think that's kind of it. I had a bit more lined up, but look, that was just in case I got tongue tied and couldn't think of anything. Why not leave some stuff till another time? And maybe I'll do this next Saturday as well. Maybe around about the same time and around about the same day every week. If I could do something every week, that would be brilliant. Miss Masklist asked who or what inspired me to go live. Look, not just one individual, but one of the individuals was Bianca Zombie. And I better say, his channel he's got two, both Bianca Zombie and Bianca Fights the Zombies, which is a bigger channel. If I got it wrong, let me know, Bianca, and I'll put it in there. And he is helpfully advising me. I'm going to get rid of this Hall of Mirrors effect now if I can. Oh yeah, stop screen sharing. What did I want to say there? Oh yeah, I'll put in my links, right? So because even though I could tell you, now what's uploads, channels? I know there's somewhere where I can say, do I go here at channels? Yeah, I think I do. And then not sync earnings. Damn it. I'm sure you're all, or at least a few people who use Odyssey are telling me this is how you do it. My invite link. That's probably the best way to do it. Okay, so I'll put that in the StreamYard. Copy share. Yeah. So there it is, written on the screen. I see there's a dollar sign in it. I don't fully understand how the monetary system on Odyssey works, but I know that you have to have a certain amount of whatever the coin is that you can upload videos, but maybe not. Maybe to get them seen by more people, whatever. Might be useful. If you follow that link, and then if anyone joins Odyssey based on that link, it might sort of say, right, I can upload with more visibility or something like that. Matt, thanks a million. Now he says, I'm really looking forward to another live. It was really good. Well, I'm so glad. I really appreciate it because I was nervous. But like, the other person who inspired me is Reg from Alaska. Must give him another shout out on his channel. I better find it, right? To give him, because he's coming on later tonight, as he usually does. But he's called Waked Alaska now. And god damn it, they of course, right, they're going to make him difficult to find. Okay, maybe it's maybe it auto-corrected. Waked in Alaska. Of course, you're not seeing my screen now at the moment. I found his URL anyway. I'll put his in the link, and might as well find Bianca Zombies. And so that's Reg from Alaska, right? He's on later tonight, Reg from Alaska. And Miss Maskless has a good channel, and she cracks me up when she does impressions of things, and especially when she had that video about Biden doing the sniffing. That really genuinely made me laugh. But there was a few other things as well. Reg is where I found you. Cheers, Matt. Now, Bianca Zombies, and I might as well, since I'm talking about Miss Maskless, might as well do her there as well. Do her right now. I didn't mean that. Copy paste her URL. That's what I meant. Oh wow! And I see that she actually has not just a string of letters and numbers, but she has an sort of shorthand URL, which is youtube.com at Miss Maskless. Pretty amazing. I wonder how you get that. Maybe anyone can do it if it's not taken already. I did Reg from Alaska. I'll look for Bianca Fights the Zombies because that's the main channel. Bit of cross promotion. Why not? Right? Who will help us if we don't help each other? So even though you can't see my screen, I'm searching. Yeah, good. Thankfully, wow! Congratulations on the breaking the 2,000. Although it's been hard won and hard fought. 2,000 subscription count. It's the Bio Anka. No, not Bio Anka. Bianca Fights the Zombies. Now, put that up on screen just for now. Bianca Fights the Zombies. That there is Miss Maskless. This here is Reg from Alaska. What else now? To keep thinking of forgotten. Have I forgotten anybody? Or would anybody else like a shout out? Oh, Lily Gazoo, right? Why not? She posts very lovely, serene videos. You would never think that she's a rabid anti-dentite secretly, right? Keeping her cards very close to her chest. But listen, I'm not trying to out anybody. That's a joke, right? That's a joke. She is just so calming with her videos. And I think they're like poetic postcards. Now, I'm not over egging the pudding there. Maybe she's blushing. But I'm going to, I don't want to, set the expectations too high. Ha ha ha, she says. So I won't kill her with over exuberant praise, right? But I think that they are like picture postcards that are very soothing and sympathetic and poetic. So I'm gonna search for her channel and give her a shout out as well. Why not? Lily Gazoo. And Matt lately has been starting to get. He's been very humorous. One of his recent videos was where he sort of said, "Now I'm just going to do this plumbing video here, and just going to show you how you grease the pipe. That's all." And you just shove this into the pipe. it was not suitable for children. Maybe a young child would sort of go like, "What's the deal?" If adults were laughing, but it was humorous because he was kind of saying, basically, "What are you talking about? No, this is just a instructional video." And there's Shadow there. Listen, I'll have to give him a shout out as well. So this is Lily Gazoo. There you are. That's Lily Gazoo's, but it's in the chat. But I'm just kind of maybe thinking that if there's I don't know how you do live chat playback or what happens or how you ensure that happens. So in case there's no live chat playback, you could copy that string of characters off the screen and write. You could do it. It's not that long if you really wanted to. And I think that it is for all of these people important for us to internetwork, but not just important. The content that they create is worth watching. It's informative or humorous, or it makes you know that you're not alone, right? Now, Shadow, right? Shadow Mask 1995. That better be the name of your channel, and I'll search you up there and link your channel name as well. Shadow Mask 1995. I'm pretty sure that it's Lebanon, right? I don't want to dox anybody. I don't think Shadow minds, but maybe I shouldn't assume. But I think he's of Lebanese extraction, let's say, right? I think that might be the case. So he's so it just goes to show, right? We're not just a very predictable basket of deplorables, right? We've got deplorables all over the place, right? And right, it turns out he must have signed up as Gaddafi. Right? Oh, not Gaddafi, Gaddafi, but you could spell it that way if you wanted. Highly controversial. And oh my God, I see Jack Torrance here. Um, so okay, I forgot to put his name in there, but that is Shadow, right? Otherwise, and I only discovered now that he was originally called Gaddafi. Ooh. Um, Controversial. Why? Maybe we, could talk about Libya another time. So it's not Lebanon, it's Libya. I don't think so, but who knows? I'll stop trying to dox you. Right? They might go into whatever country you're in. Nah, but I don't think that's going to happen. So that was Shadow 1995, and I'll put his name up on screen. Considering I just forgot to put that with his URL, and I better. Oh, I see. Right. Jack preempted that and he says, no, that's all right. No links to me. If they find me, they find me. That's all. It's only for special people. It's a secret club for secret people. And if people want to go to the effort of finding Jack, or if they want to use the look of the universe to just alight upon his channel by happenstance, then so be it. But otherwise, stay away. He wants to be able to say whatever he says in the knowledge that whoever got there had to climb up a cliff barehanded to get there. You know what I mean? only for those who are willing to make the journey. So fair enough. Right. I will leave it at that because I think. Oh no, I didn't, Matt. Did I put your your channel? Look, while I look for it, if you want to do the same as Jack and say no, not me, do that while I look for your channel. And if I don't hear back from you, then I will give you a shout out. And look, I'm delighted. I'm really honored and pleased that I have many of my favorite YouTubers coming along at some point to, even if you haven't been here for the whole stream, to listen to me and to show support, or hope to find something that I've said interesting or comforting in some way. And by comforting, I mean that you sort of say, okay, I was beginning to question again whether just some aspect of my worldview might have been a little bit not quite right or off. And you might say, well, at least there's corroboration there, right? Because we are bombarded with propaganda from everywhere telling us how wrong we are. Kiss my ass, 1995. It's very difficult. At kiss my ass, socialist. Yeah, I found it. So just reading a few comments there. So good, don't worry about it. Oh, you like your channel being small? Okay, well, look. So I'll leave it till another time then. I'll do another stream next week. I have it ready to copy and paste, but I won't if you don't. And look, anyway, people can look up your name there. I was able to look up Matt Kiss My Ass Socialist, but Kiss My Ass Tyrants will work as well, I guess. All right, I'll leave it at that. I'll sign off. Although there was one comment, and I'll put up on screen here, and I think this was Bianca Zombie explaining about how library Bitcoin tokens, I'm guessing is what LBC stands for, and it says Stripe and your bank is for cash. LBC tokens are for the platform. Yeah, I'm not talking about cash at all, and I don't know how if it's possible even to connect Odyssey tokens to real cash. But all I know is when I was uploading and I was doing it manually, some of my videos by downloading it from YouTube and uploading it to Odyssey, there came a point where it said, and it was saying every time, like, so how much coins do you want to do with this upload? And I was going, I don't know. And I was just accepting whatever default thing it offered me. And after a while, I ran out and it said, sorry, you don't have coins to upload. So I went, oh, damn it. I should have paid more attention to whatever this thing is. So I do know that if you watch Odyssey, you get some coins. And I guess if some people watch your videos, you get some coins. And so that's why I would like to get a bit more coins so I can, because I got started to get very prolific over the last week and uploading to Odyssey, and I don't want to run into a wall where I just can't upload anything. So that's that there. Right, cheers everybody. Cheers to both Jacks. Oh my god, there's two Jacks. Is one of them an imposter? Huh. Okay, maybe there's an in-joke on there. Look, I'll leave it at that. Thanks very much, everyone, for listening. And maybe see you next week. All going well. Cheers for now, and I look forward to hearing Reg from Alaska's later tonight.